While Nathan drains our joint account to shower his girlfriend with designer gifts, I'm quietly liquidating investments he has no idea I control. He thinks I'm at my book club right now. I'm actually finalizing paperwork that will freeze the Mitchell Marketing Group assets he's been embezzling from for months. As he books first-class tickets to Hawaii for their romantic getaway using our mortgage savings, I'm orchestrating the most sophisticated reality check of his privileged existence. He has absolutely no clue that his supposedly financially dependent wife has been the silent majority shareholder of his family's company for the past 2 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My hand remains perfectly steady as I sign another legal document, a slight smile playing on my lips. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Grace's law office, I can see the exclusive jewelry boutique where my husband, Nate, is currently shopping for his mistress, Olivia. The irony isn't lost on me. It's the same boutique where he purchased my engagement ring 6 years ago. The same boutique that just sent a purchase confirmation to my phone for a $23,000 necklace charged to our joint credit card. Becca, are you absolutely certain about this timing? Grace watches me with a mixture of concern and admiration, her tortoiseshell glasses catching the afternoon light as she organizes another stack of legal documents. We could wait until after the quarterly board meeting next week. I turn my phone toward her, displaying Nate's most recent Instagram story. The timestamp reads 4 minutes ago. Working hard for the rewards that matter. Our blessed our entrepreneur life. The photo shows a champagne flute at the jewelry store's private client lounge, his grandfather's vintage watch visible at the edge of the frame, the watch I helped him restore for his 35th birthday last year. The timing, I say, signing another document with a practiced flourish, is precisely right. My phone buzzes with a text from Nate. Working late tonight, babe. Client presentation running behind. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. I've saved every message like this from the past 6 months. Each one corresponds perfectly with credit card charges at high-end restaurants, luxury boutiques, or premium hotels. The ones he doesn't know I've tracked meticulously. The ones that align exactly with Olivia's suspiciously lavish Instagram posts, each tagged with smug captions about her generous mystery man and living her authentic luxury life. What Nate doesn't realize is that I've known about their affair for months. Every client emergency, every marketing strategy session, every suspicious withdrawal from our joint savings account. I've documented it all. But unlike the stereotypical betrayed wife, I didn't confront him immediately. I didn't throw his designer clothes onto our condo's balcony or key his precious Tesla. Instead, I did what I do best. I followed the money. This one, Grace points to a particular document, will initiate the company audit once you sign. After this, there's no turning back. I think about this morning, how Nate kissed my cheek before leaving for work, how he promised we'd plan that anniversary trip to Hawaii soon. Meanwhile, I'd already seen the Hawaii reservations he made for himself and Olivia next month, paid for with what was supposed to be our down payment on a larger home. Good, I say, my signature flowing confidently across the paper. That's exactly what I want. My phone lights up with another notification. An Instagram story from Olivia showing off a distinctive blue jewelry box captioned, "When he knows exactly what you deserve." I screenshot it, noting the time and date. It matches perfectly with the purchase notification from our joint credit card, the one Nate thinks I never check because I'm not good with numbers. The forensic accounting team will begin their investigation on Monday morning, Grace explains, organizing the papers. Given what you've already uncovered about the company fund manipulations, they'll likely find twice as much as we already know. I finish for her, pulling up a folder on my phone. Here's every transaction he's tried to hide through that fake marketing consultancy he established. The one where Olivia mysteriously became a brand strategist 3 months ago, despite her only experience being as a part-time yoga instructor and full-time Instagram influencer. Grace's eyes widen as she scrolls through the documents. This is incredibly thorough. I had a lot of free evenings, I say dryly. You know, with all his client meetings. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a group text notification. Our friends planning a weekend hike in Forest Park. Nate responds immediately. Sorry everyone, have to skip. Flying to Seattle for a last-minute pitch. I have to suppress a laugh. I know about that business trip too. I've seen the hotel reservation in Maui, first-class tickets for 2 charged to our joint credit card. Last one, Grace says, sliding the final paper across the desk. This initiates the complete company audit and temporary asset freeze. Once you sign this, I don't hesitate. My signature flows across the paper, years of anger and betrayal channeled into each curve and line. Another notification pops. Up. Nate going live on Instagram from what's supposed to be his client meeting. The jewelry store's distinctive decor visible in the background. Let them celebrate, I say, standing up and smoothing my dress, the one Nate bought me last month to assuage his guilt. By Monday morning, they'll have a very different story to share. Grace gathers the papers, her expression both impressed and slightly concerned. You know, in 14 years of handling corporate disputes, I've never seen anyone quite as strategic, I suggest, picking up my bag. Or maybe just tired of being underestimated, she replies with a knowing smile. As I walk out of the office, my phone buzzes one last time. Nate sending his customary evening check-in. Miss you, beautiful. Can't wait to come home to you tonight. I smile, typing back, sleep well, darling. Monday's going to be interesting. He'll think it's just another loving message from his unsuspecting wife. But then again, he always did underestimate me. That's about to become his most expensive mistake. Little does he know, while he's been playing his games, I've been orchestrating a much longer and more sophisticated one. 2 years ago, when his father Bill suffered a stroke, I was the one who helped reorganize the family business structure. Nate was too busy networking at industry events to attend the meetings with the corporate attorneys. He never bothered to read the updated company bylaws, the ones that transferred his father's controlling shares to me, his supposedly financially illiterate wife, as protective trustee. Monday morning cannot come soon enough. The morning after signing those initial papers, I dress with deliberate care. A silk blouse from a local designer, tailored charcoal trousers, and the pearl earrings Nate's mother gave me last Christmas. The mirror reflects exactly what Nate expects to see. His perfectly polished wife, the former art history major he loves to introduce as his beautiful but financially clueless partner at company functions. If he only knew I spent 4 years managing investment portfolios at Goldman Sachs before we met. Good morning, darling, I call out as he stumbles into our immaculate kitchen, clearly hungover from last night's client meeting. The espresso machine hums quietly, filling our $3 million Pearl District condo with the aroma of his favorite single-origin beans. I made your breakfast, I say sweetly. He kisses my cheek, reeking of expensive cologne and guilt. The same cologne I noticed on Olivia's latest Instagram post from their accidental run-in at Nordstrom yesterday. You're too good to me, babe. If only you knew, I think, sliding his coffee across our Italian marble counter. The same counter where I'd sat until 2 a.m. last night on a secure video call with Thomas, my former colleague from Goldman Sachs. Thomas, who now heads their West Coast private client division. Thomas, who nearly spat out his whiskey when I showed him what I'd found in Nate's private company transactions. Another early meeting? I ask innocently, watching him check his phone. His lock screen is still our vacation photo from Italy last summer, but I know his background is Olivia. I've seen it reflected in his car window when he texts her during our dinner dates. Yeah, the Anderson campaign is killing me. He runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair, distracted. The Anderson campaign that doesn't exist. I've already confirmed that Anderson Brewing moved their marketing to a different agency 4 months ago. Don't work too hard, I say, squeezing his shoulder. He doesn't notice me taking a photo of his phone screen in the reflection of our refrigerator's stainless steel surface, capturing Olivia's message about their lunch plans at the new fusion restaurant downtown. After he leaves, I transform our home office into my command center. The framed photos of our wedding at the Portland Art Museum disappear into drawers, replaced by printouts of bank statements, company documents, and property records. My friend Zoe, a corporate attorney I've known since our university days, sits cross-legged on my custom area rug, surrounded by papers. Jesus Christ, she mutters, holding up a document. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Did he really think he could hide these company fund withdrawals behind a shell corporation registered in Wyoming? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. He registered it under his childhood dog's name, the one that died when he was 15. Zoe shakes her head, adding the paper to our growing evidence pile. Men like him always think they're the smartest person in the room. That's because they never bother looking around, I reply, pulling up another document on my laptop. Look at this. Every time he meets Olivia, he files it as a marketing consultancy expense. A 5-star restaurant with a woman who's supposedly advising him on brand strategy, despite not knowing the difference between SEO and a search engine. My phone buzzes, a group text from our friend Megan about her upcoming charity gala at the Portland Art Museum. Nate responds immediately with another excuse. Olivia, I notice, has already marked herself unavailable on the event's planning committee list. They're getting careless, I observe, adding another screenshot to my collection. Have you talked to Judge Williams yet? Zoe asks, referring to our friend who oversees corporate disputes in Multnomah County. I nod, pulling up an encrypted email chain. She's ready. The moment we file on Monday, she'll randomly schedule an emergency hearing about suspicious company activities. The same hearing that will reveal Olivia's consultancy has been receiving company payments since before. She even met Nate. My phone lights up with Nate's face, his daily check-in call. I answer with practiced cheerfulness, listening to him lie about his lunch meeting while I stare at their restaurant reservation confirmation in my email. The same email account he set up for me, thinking I'd only use it for online shopping. Miss you too, honey, I say, watching Zoe roll her eyes dramatically. Don't forget we have dinner with your parents tonight. He pauses, and I can practically hear him texting Olivia to reschedule. Of course, babe. Wouldn't miss it. After hanging up, I turn to Zoe. He'll cancel in about 3 hours. Emergency client meeting. How can you be so sure? I pull up Olivia's Instagram story from this morning, a cryptic post about a special sunset surprise at the new rooftop bar at the Nines Hotel, because I know their routine better than they do. The rest of the day unfolds like a carefully choreographed dance. I attend my regular volunteer meeting at the Art Foundation where I serve as a board member. I make appearances at my usual lunch spots. I even get my nails done at the salon where Nate's sister goes. Everything normal. Everything routine. No one would suspect that in my designer tote bag, I'm carrying documents that will dismantle a decade of Nate's careful deceptions. Right. On schedule at 4:42 p.m., Nate texts, "Baby, I'm so sorry. Might have to rain check dinner with my parents. Emergency meeting with the Anderson team." I respond with just the right amount of disappointment and understanding, watching through my phone's banking alerts as he makes a dinner reservation at Riverfront Bistro, his and Olivia's favorite spot for their strategy sessions. The marketing team hasn't scheduled any meetings. I would know. I'm the one who approved their quarterly calendar when Bill made me acting CFO during his recovery. Look what just came in, Zoe says, holding up her phone. Olivia's posted a photo of champagne glasses at sunset. the Nines Hotel's distinctive cityscape view unmistakable in the background. Perfect, I say, adding the screenshot to our collection. That receipt will match beautifully with the emergency client dinner he's about to charge to the company account. As evening falls, I sit in our meticulously decorated living room, surrounded by evidence of Nate's double life and my own careful documentation. Every lie, every secret meeting, every hidden company withdrawal, all of it meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced. My phone buzzes with another Instagram notification. Olivia wearing a new designer dress that costs more than her supposed monthly consulting fee, captioned with a single diamond emoji. I save it to the folder marked Monday and pour myself a glass of the rare Oregon Pinot Noir from the collection Nate thinks only he has access to in our wine fridge. Let them have their romantic evening, I murmur, scanning through the latest company report Thomas sent over. Let them think they're the clever ones, playing their little game of hide-and-seek with the naive wife. I've spent months building this facade of ignorance, and in less than 12 hours, I'll have the pleasure of watching it shatter, along with everything else they thought they could take from me. The forensic accountants finished their preliminary review, Grace calls, from the office, her voice tight with disbelief. You're not going to believe what they found in the offshore accounts. I join her, my heels clicking against our hardwood floors. On her laptop screen, a complex web of transactions unfolds. A masterpiece of financial deceit that would be almost impressive if it wasn't so staggeringly stupid. He's been transferring company money through 3 different shell companies, Grace explains, highlighting various transactions, all registered under variations of his dog's name, then funneling it through Olivia's fake consulting firm and into private accounts in Wyoming. I lean closer, a cold smile playing at my lips. Show me the dates of the first transfers. Grace pulls up a timeline and my smile widens. Just as I thought, he started moving money the day after his father made me trustee. He never even bothered to check who had final approval power. My phone chimes with a message from Eleanor. Mitchell, Nate's mother. Darling, are you and Nathan still coming for dinner? I've had Marie prepare his favorite salmon. Poor Eleanor, still believing her son is the same responsible young man who followed his father's footsteps into the family business. Wait until she discovers how her precious boy has been treating the business her husband built from nothing. What about the company bylaws? Zoe asks, pulling up another document. Section 9, paragraph 4, I quote from memory. Any officer or director found to be engaging in actions that endanger or diminish the company's financial stability can be immediately suspended from duties pending full investigation. And Zoe's eyes gleam. And with Olivia's social media trail, every post, every photo, every location check-in, all matching perfectly with company withdrawals and consulting payments, I confirm, pulling up a carefully curated folder on my laptop. They've documented their own misconduct better than we ever could. My phone lights up with another check-in from Nate. Just wrapped the emergency meeting, baby. Might be a late one. So much paperwork to review. I text back, don't work too hard, darling. Make sure you eat something. Through the window, I can see the lights of the Nines Hotel, knowing they're up there right now, celebrating what they think is their perfect deception. Nate probably congratulating himself on how skillfully he's managed to hide his withdrawals from the company accounts. Olivia no doubt already planning how to spend more of the Mitchell family money. Judge Williams? Just confirmed, Grace says, checking her phone. The moment we file, she'll expedite the hearing. I nod, walking to our floor-to-ceiling windows. The Portland skyline sparkles back at me, a constellation of lights that seems to mirror the intricate web of evidence we've woven. Becca. Grace's voice turned serious. Are you absolutely sure about the timing? We could wait until after the Pacific Rim Financial Summit next week. His whole family will be there. I turned back to her, thinking of the invitation I'd helped Eleanor design. The lavish presentation planned at the Portland Convention Center, where Nate intends to announce his new role as CEO of Mitchell Marketing Group, the same conference where he and Olivia plan to accidentally meet, beginning their public story with a meet-cute his mother would approve of. The timing, I say, picking up another stack of documents, is exactly right. Let him stand in front of the entire industry ready to make his big announcement. Grace raises an eyebrow. Right before Judge Williams' bailiff serves him with the company suspension papers. Poetic, isn't it? My phone buzzes again. A text from Olivia to our charity committee group. So sorry to miss tomorrow's meeting, everyone. Last-minute client emergency. The same meeting where we're supposed to discuss the annual Mitchell Family Foundation Gala. I add the screenshot to our evidence file, then pull up the company's latest financial statement. The numbers that Nate thinks only he understands glow on the screen. If he'd ever bothered to really look, he'd have noticed that every transaction, every transfer, every withdrawal has required dual authentication for the past 2 years. One code from him, one from the trustee. Me. I've watched every dollar he's tried to hide, every account he's attempted to obscure, every lie he's built his house of cards upon, all while playing the role he assigned me, the beautiful, naive wife who couldn't possibly understand the complexities of marketing finance. His father's office just confirmed. Grace checks another message. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday. Nate is supposed to present the new company growth strategy. I smile, remembering the fabricated reports he's been working on, the fake projections he's created to hide his mismanagement of the company funds. Perfect. That gives Judge Williams' team plenty of time to arrive by 9:30. My phone lights up one final time for the night. Nate sending a photo of paperwork scattered across what appears to be his office desk. Actually, the Nines Hotel's distinctive, stationery visible in the corner. Still grinding, baby. Don't wait up. I text back a single heart emoji, then turn to Grace. Shall we finish preparing his wake-up call? For the next few hours, we meticulously review every document, every piece of evidence, every single detail of what's about to unfold. By the time Grace and Zoe leave, the sun is starting to rise over Mint Hood, painting our living room in shades of gold and pink. I hear Nate's key in the door around 6:30 a.m. He tries to be quiet, but his designer shoes still click against the hardwood floors. I'm already in the kitchen, perfectly dressed, makeup flawless, starting the coffee maker. You're up early, he says, trying to hide his surprise, and the faint trace of Olivia's signature perfume on his collar. Thought you could use some breakfast after your late night, I smile, sliding him a cup of coffee. Must have been some important marketing strategy. You know how it is, he waves vaguely, not meeting my eyes. Sometimes these things can't wait. Oh, darling, I think, watching him check his phone under the table, no doubt messaging Olivia about their close call. You have no idea how right you are. Just a few more hours until Monday morning, when they learn exactly what happens when you mistake silence for ignorance and underestimate the woman you thought you'd fooled. Monday morning dawns clear and bright, the kind of crisp autumn Portland day that usually has tourists flooding the Japanese garden. I wake up at precisely 6 a.m., though I've barely slept. Nate's side of our luxury bed is empty. He'd left early, eager to prepare for his big presentation to the company board. If he only knew what else was being prepared for him. I dress with surgical precision, a charcoal gray suit that means business, designer heels, a guilt gift from Nate after a particularly expensive weekend with Olivia, and Eleanor's pearls. AI, symbol of the family business he's about to lose access to. Every detail matters today. Every piece tells a story. Morning, beautiful. Nate's voice is unusually chipper when he calls at 7:30 a.m. Just wanted to check you're coming to the board meeting, right? Thought you might want to see your husband's big moment. Wouldn't miss it for the world, darling. I reply, watching Grace send confirmation that Judge Williams has arrived at her chambers. Someone should be there to witness everything you deserve. He chuckles, missing my tone completely. That's my girl. See you at 9. I end the call and pull up the security feed from the Mitchell Marketing Group's offices. Amazing what being a trustee grants you access to. Nate is already there, practicing his presentation in the boardroom mirror, adjusting his designer tie with nervous fingers. On another screen, I watch Olivia enter her favorite coffee shop, no doubt planning to celebrate with Nate after his triumph. Everything's in position, Zoe texts. She's already at the courthouse with Grace, waiting for the perfect moment. Judge Williams is reviewing the final documents now. I check my watch, 8:15 a.m. Time to set the wheels in motion. My first stop is Pacific Northwest Trust, where I've been a familiar face since helping reorganize the Mitchell family business 2 years ago. Nate never bothered to attend these meetings. Boring paperwork, he'd called it. His loss. Mrs. Mitchell, James, the private banking director, greets me warmly. Everything is prepared as requested. I smile, taking a seat in his plush office. And the timing? He slides a document across his mahogany desk. The moment you send the signal, every account Nate has access to will be flagged for review. The company auditors are standing by. Perfect. I sign where indicated, my pen, another of Nate's guilt gifts, flowing smoothly across the paper. And his private accounts? The ones he thought were hidden? James allows himself a small smile. Already under surveillance. The moment the company's suspension hits, those freeze too. My phone buzzes. A message from Eleanor Mitchell. Darling, I'm so proud of Nathan today, and so grateful to have you as part of our family. You've been such a blessing. If she only knew how much of a blessing I was about to be, saving her family's company from her own son's greed. At 8:45 a.m., I enter the Mitchell Marketing Group's gleaming office tower, nodding to security guards who know me as the boss's wife, not realizing I'm actually their superior. The elevator rides smoothly to the 15th floor, where the family's legacy has been managed for 3 decades. Nate is waiting by the boardroom, practically bouncing with nervous energy. You made it! He kisses my cheek, and I catch a whiff of Olivia's perfume still lingering on his collar. I've got such a good feeling about today. Oh, darling, I murmur, straightening his tie. You have no idea how memorable today is going to be. The boardroom fills quickly with family members and executives. Bill Mitchell takes his place at the head of the table, looking much healthier than he did 2 years ago. Every bit the company patriarch in his tailored suit. If only his son had inherited his integrity along with his features. Before we begin, Bill announces, I want to thank everyone for being here for this momentous occasion. As you know, we're here to discuss the future of Mitchell Marketing Group, and my son Nathan has prepared a comprehensive presentation on our new growth strategy. Nate stands, straightening his papers with practiced confidence. His PowerPoint presentation glows on the screen behind him, slides full of fake projections and manipulated numbers that took him weeks to fabricate. Good morning, everyone. He begins, flashing his 1,000-watt smile. Today marks a new chapter in the Mitchell legacy. 8:59 a.m. My phone vibrates silently in my lap. Grace's message is simple. Ready. 9 a.m. Nate clicks to his first slide, pointing out fabricated growth projections with practiced charm. As you can see, our company's performance under my guidance has been exceptional. 9:01 a.m. I send a single text. Now. The effect is immediate but subtle at first. Nate's phone buzzes in his pocket, probably a notification from his banking app. He ignores it, continuing his presentation. It buzzes again, and again, and again. 9:02 a.m. The boardroom door opens silently. Judge Williams's bailiff enters, nodding to me imperceptibly. Behind him, 2 corporate auditors take their places by the door. And if you'll look at these returns, Nate continues, though his phone is now buzzing constantly, He's starting to look distracted, shifting uncomfortably. You'll see that our innovative approach to... His voice trails off as he notices his father checking his own phone, frowning deeply. Other board members are doing the same, their expression shifting from polite attention to confused concern. 9:05 a.m. The bailiff steps forward, official documents in hand. Mr. Nathan Mitchell? Nate turns, annoyed at the interruption of his big moment. I'm in the middle of something here. You are hereby served with an emergency injunction regarding Mitchell Marketing Group, the bailiff announces clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent boardroom. By order of Judge Williams, you are suspended from all access to company accounts and assets pending investigation into serious allegations of misappropriation and fraud. The color drains from Nate's face as he takes the papers with trembling hands. His phone is still buzzing, probably notifications of his accounts being frozen one by one. There must be some mistake, he stammers, looking around the room desperately. His eyes land on me, seeking support, reassurance, the naive trust he's come to expect. Instead, he finds me calmly opening my laptop, pulling up the folders marked evidence. No mistake, darling, I say softly, turning the screen so the entire board can see. Would you like to explain these transactions to your family yourself, or shall I? The first image appears on the boardroom's main screen, replacing his fabricated presentation, a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar he's stolen, every lie he's told, every trust he's broken. Behind him, Bill Mitchell stands slowly, his face a mask of shock and growing fury. Nathan, his father's voice is deadly quiet. What is this? Before he can answer, his phone buzzes one final time. He looks at it reflexively, and I know exactly what he's seeing. A notification that his access to all Mitchell family accounts has been suspended. Perhaps, I suggest, standing smoothly, we should discuss the real state of the company, starting with these unusual payments to a certain consulting firm. Nate slumps into his chair as I take control of the presentation remote. Behind him, the corporate auditors begin setting up their equipment. Through the boardroom's glass walls, I can see Grace and Zoe arriving with boxes of additional evidence. The day of reckoning has only just begun. Let's start with this particular transaction, I say, clicking to the next slide. The boardroom screen fills with a detailed breakdown of a $50,000 transfer from the company to Olivia's consulting firm made on March 12th, exactly one day after her company was registered. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Nate's hands grip the armrests of his chair, knuckles white. Behind him, Bill Mitchell has switched from shock to cold fury, his jaw clenched as he watches his son's deceptions laid bare. Of course, I continue, clicking through to the next slide. That was just the beginning. Shall we discuss the offshore accounts registered under your childhood pet's name? Or perhaps the series of business development charges at the Nines? Hotel that coincidentally match perfectly with these Instagram posts. The screen fills with a carefully curated collection. Olivia's social media posts side by side with company expenditures, times, and dates perfectly aligned. Each champagne, toast, each surprise gift, each luxury weekend mathematically matched with a suspicious withdrawal. This is ridiculous, Nate finally manages, his voice cracking. These are legitimate business expenses. Dad, I can explain. Explain what, exactly? I interrupt smoothly, pulling up another document. How you started embezzling from the company the day after your father made me trustee? Or should we discuss how you've been using family funds to finance your affair while planning to divorce me? A gasp ripples through the boardroom. Eleanor Mitchell presses a hand to her chest, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. Divorce? She whispers. Nathan, what is she talking about? Oh, you didn't know? I turn to my mother-in-law with practiced sympathy. Nathan and his financial consultant have quite the future planned, booked with Mitchell money of course, Would you like to see the Hawaii reservations? The engagement ring receipt? Or perhaps the draft divorce papers his lawyer drew up last week? Nate lunges for his phone, probably to warn Olivia, but it's already too late. Through the boardroom's glass walls, we can see her being escorted into the building by corporate security, her designer handbag clutched to her chest like a shield. Perfect timing, I murmur, checking my watch. The corporate security? Nate's voice rises an octave. What did you really think? I cut in, my voice carrying clearly across the stunned boardroom. That you could embezzle hundreds of thousands from a family business without consequences? That no one would notice your creative accounting? Your father made me trustee for a reason, darling, and unlike you, I actually read the financial reports. The corporate auditors have set up their equipment now, efficiently downloading data from the company servers. Grace stands at the ready with another stack of documents, the complete forensic accounting of every dollar Nate has stolen. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the auditors calls out, we've confirmed the initial findings. The pattern of misappropriation is consistent with your report. Nate's head snaps up. Your report? Who do you think has been documenting your theft all these months? I ask quietly. Who do you think has been tracking every lie, every secret meeting, every hidden transaction? The wife you thought was too naive to understand finance? The trophy you believed would never question your business meetings? His phone buzzes again. Probably Olivia being brought to the conference room for questioning. Through the glass, I can see her mascara-streaked face as she realizes the magnitude of their situation. I can fix this. Nate stands abruptly, desperation creeping into his voice. Dad, just let me explain. We can handle this internally. Sit down. Bill Mitchell's voice could freeze hell itself. You've done quite enough. Actually, I interject, pulling up another document. We're just getting started. Would anyone like to see the company's true performance reports? The ones Nathan has been hiding while presenting his creative fiction? The next hour unfolds like a perfectly choreographed dance. With each new revelation, each piece of evidence, each damning document, Nate shrinks further into his chair. His carefully constructed world of lies crumbles slide by slide, dollar by dollar. The Wyoming accounts have been frozen, Zoe announces, from the doorway. And Judge Williams has approved the emergency audit of all personal assets. Nate's head snaps up. Personal assets? You can't. Section 9, paragraph 4 of the company bylaws, I quote smoothly. Any officer or director found to be engaging in actions that endanger or diminish the company's financial stability can be immediately suspended from access to all related assets, pending full investigation. Your father insisted I memorize every clause when he made me trustee. Shame you never bothered to read them yourself. A commotion outside draws everyone's attention. Olivia is being led to a separate room, her face a mask of panic as she realizes the serious nature of her situation. Through the glass, I watch her reach for her phone, probably to call the lawyer she thinks can save her. Don't bother, I call out, loud enough for her to hear through the glass. Your lawyer dropped you 20 minutes ago. Apparently, he has some concerns about being associated with corporate fraud. Nate stands again, this time moving toward the door, but the corporate security shifts smoothly to block his path. This is insane. You can't what? I ask, my voice deadly quiet. Protect the family business from your greed? Prevent you from stealing more of your parents' legacy? Or perhaps you're upset that I won't let you drain the accounts to fund your new life with Olivia. I click to the next slide, and Nate actually flinches. It's a photo from last week. Him and Olivia at a local jeweler, shopping for engagement rings, the company credit card receipt for the purchase still pending in the system. Engagement rings? Eleanor Bennett's voice is barely a whisper. While you're still married to Rebecca? Speaking of marriage, I continue, pulling up another document. Nathan, darling, Why don't you explain to everyone why you've been meeting with divorce attorneys? Or should I share the prenup dissolution papers you had drafted? The boardroom is deadly silent now. Every eye fixed on Nate as he realizes just how completely his plans have imploded. His father stands slowly, every inch the powerful businessman whose legacy his son has betrayed. "Get him out of my sight," Bill orders, his voice trembling with rage. "And call the company lawyers, all of them." As security begins to escort Nate from the boardroom, his phone buzzes one final time. I know exactly what notification he's receiving. His access to the Mitchell Marketing Group offices has been revoked, his key card deactivated, his credentials suspended. "One more thing," I call out just as he reaches the door. "You might want to pack a bag when you get home. The condo belongs to the company housing trust, and as of 9 minutes ago, you're no longer a permitted resident." Nate turns, his face a mask of disbelief. "Where am I supposed to go?" I smile, remembering all the nights I lay awake while he was with Olivia, planning this very moment. "Perhaps you could stay at the Nines." "Oh, wait, your credit cards have all been frozen." "Well, I'm sure Olivia would offer her sofa, but..." I glance meaningfully at the corporate security leading her to questioning. She might be a bit preoccupied. As Nate is led away, Eleanor Mitchell approaches me, tears in her eyes. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. We had no idea he was..." "It's not your fault." I squeeze her hand gently. "You raised a good son. He just made very, very bad choices." Grace appears at my side with another update. "Judge Williams wants to see you, and the forensic accountants have found 3 more offshore accounts." I nod, gathering my things as the corporate auditors continue their work. Through the glass walls, I can see Nate being escorted to the lobby, his world collapsing around him. His phone is probably exploding with notifications. Frozen accounts, canceled cards, suspended memberships, revoked access. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the auditors, approaches. "We'll need a statement about the company fund discrepancies." "Of course," I reply, smoothing my skirt as I stand. "I believe I have everything you need right here." I pat my briefcase filled with months of careful documentation, weeks of meticulous planning, and years of quiet observation. Nate thought he was so clever, playing his games with the family business, while his trophy wife smiled quietly at his side. He never realized that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear the most. The next few hours unfold like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of consequences. From my temporary office in the Mitchell Marketing Group's executive suite, Nate's former office, ironically, I watch the dominoes continue to fall through multiple screens and live feeds. His attempt to access the Wyoming accounts was just denied, Zoe reports, monitoring the financial alerts. He tried using his backup passwords, the ones he thought nobody knew about. I smile, remembering how easy it was to find those passwords, scribbled in his private notebook, the one he kept in his secret drawer behind our bedroom's floating shelf. How many attempts? 7 so far, each one triggering another alert to the financial authorities. My phone buzzes with a notification from our home security system. Nate has arrived at the condo, probably hoping to grab some essentials before the locks are changed. Through the camera feed, I watch him frantically shoving designer suits into his luggage, the same suits I helped him select, each one paid for with company money he'll soon have to account for. "Should we tell him about the asset freeze?" Zoe asks, watching the feed over my shoulder. "Let him figure it out," I reply, turning my attention to another screen showing the investigators interviewing Olivia. Her confident facade has crumbled completely now, mascara streaking down her face as she realizes the full implications of her role in Nate's scheme. "Mrs. Mitchell," Grace enters with a fresh stack of documents. "The family's private bank just called. They've completed the initial audit of Nate's personal accounts." I raise an eyebrow. "And?" "He's been skimming from more than just the company fund. They found irregular transfers from his father's medical expense account, his sister's children's education fund, even the family's charitable foundation. Eleanor Mitchell, who's been sitting quietly in the corner trying to process the morning's events, lets out a small sob. The children's education fund? His own nieces and nephews? I move to comfort my mother-in-law, the woman who welcomed me into her family with open arms 6 years ago. We've already reversed the transfers, Eleanor. The children's futures are secure. My phone lights up with another notification, Nate trying to check into the Heathman Hotel using his black card. I can almost see the color drain from his face as the card is declined. Through various feeds and alerts, I track his increasingly desperate attempts. The Woodlark, declined. The Benson, declined. The Jupiter, declined. His lawyer just dropped. Him, Zoe announces, checking her messages. Apparently, he tried to pay the retainer with one of the frozen accounts. The firm has concerns about being paid with potentially fraudulent funds. A commotion in the hallway draws our attention. Through the glass walls, we see Olivia being escorted out by corporate security, her designer handbag now filled with copies of her sworn statement. The look she shoots toward Nate's former office could freeze hell itself. She gave them everything, Grace confirms, reviewing the preliminary report. Every meeting, every transaction, every promise he made. Turns out self-preservation trumps loyalty when fraud charges are on the table. My phone buzzes again, a group text from our social circle about the upcoming charity hike in Forest Park. Nate's sister Elizabeth has already removed him from the planning committee. His name disappears from the guest list in real time, his social world crumbling as quickly as his financial one. The company audit team just found something interesting, Zoe calls out, her eyes wide as she reads from her tablet. Remember? Those business development trips to Vancouver? I turn to her, intrigued. The ones where he claimed to be meeting with potential Canadian clients? He was actually viewing properties, high-end condos on Vancouver Island, all conveniently close to the ferry terminal with easy access to international waters. They found incomplete purchase agreements on his company laptop. Eleanor's head snaps up. He was planning to run with your money? Our money, I correct gently. But don't worry, he won't get the chance now. As if on cue, my phone shows another alert. Nate's passport has been flagged. No international travel without court approval. His world is shrinking by the minute, his options disappearing one by one. The family's crisis management team is ready, Grace informs us. They've prepared statements for the press, the business, community, and the charity circuit. I nod, pulling up the draft announcements on my laptop. The careful wording presents the Mitchell family as victims of Nate's deception while emphasizing their swift action to protect the family business. No mention of my role, exactly as I planned. Rebecca, Eleanor speaks up, her voice stronger now. The annual Family Foundation Gala is next week. With Nathan's situation, perhaps you should take over as chair? Before I can respond, my phone buzzes with an urgent message from the condo security team. Nate is trying to access his home office safe, the one he thinks contains emergency cash and backup credit cards. Don't worry, I assure Eleanor, watching Nate's frustrated attempts through the security feed. I already emptied that safe last week. Everything of value is secure in the company vault. Zoe's tablet pings with another update. The forensic team just found his deleted emails. You're not going to believe what he was planning for after the divorce. I turn to the large screen on the wall, now displaying a complex web of Nate's intended post-divorce financial manipulations. Even I'm impressed by the audacity, if not the intelligence, of his schemes. He was going to claim the company violated tax laws, Zoe explains, highlighting various documents. Threatened to report irregularities to the IRS unless the family paid him a massive settlement. Eleanor gasps. He would blackmail his own family? He would try, I correct her, pulling up another document. But that would have been difficult considering I've had tax experts reviewing and certifying every company transaction for the past 2 years. My phone lights up with another notification. Nate's attempt to access his cryptocurrency accounts. "Sorry, darling," I murmur to the screen. "Those wallets were transferred to the family's secure digital vault last week, along with everything else you thought you'd hidden so cleverly." Through the office windows, I can see the sun setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. In the reflection, I catch glimpses of corporate auditors still combing through files, forensic accountants tracking down every missing dollar, and company lawyers protecting decades of Mitchell family work from one man's greed. Mrs. Mitchell, a senior investigator, approaches. "We found evidence of potentially criminal transactions dating back 3 years. We'll need your statement about when you first noticed irregularities." I retrieve a carefully prepared timeline from my briefcase. "I believe you'll find everything documented here. Every transaction, every unauthorized transfer, every attempt to circumvent company protocols." As the investigators continue their work, I receive one final notification for the day. Nate, having been denied access to every decent hotel in Portland, has checked into a budget motel on 82nd Avenue, paid for with borrowed cash since his accounts remain frozen. "Should we tell him about tomorrow?" Zoe asks, referring to the emergency company council meeting, where Nate will be formally removed from all Mitchell family enterprises. I shake my head, watching his location dot on my phone's map. So far from the privileged world he's always known. Let him sleep tonight thinking he can still fix this. Tomorrow's revelations deserve a fresh audience. Eleanor stands, gathering her composure along with her designer handbag. "Rebecca, we can never thank you enough for protecting the Tsat family's legacy, for stopping him before he destroyed everything your family spent decades building," I finished gently. "Eleanor, when you welcomed me into your family, you made me a Mitchell. I protect what's mine." As the office slowly empties, I remain at my desk, surrounded by evidence of Nate's betrayal and my own careful preparation. On one screen, I watch him pacing in his motel room, probably trying to figure out how his perfect plan imploded so spectacularly. On another, I see Olivia checking into a flight to her parents' home in Boise, her dreams of becoming Mrs. Mitchell evaporating like morning mist. My phone buzzes one last time, Nate trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his life. "Baby, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything." I smile, thinking of all the nights I lay awake listening to his lies about working late while I quietly built the case that would bring him down. "No need to explain, darling," I text back. "The federal investigators have all the explanations they need." Then I turn off my phone, gather my things, and prepare to head home to the condo that now belongs solely to me. Tomorrow will bring more revelations, more consequences, more dismantling of Nate's carefully constructed house of cards. But tonight, I'll sleep soundly in our king-sized bed, alone but victorious, while my husband learns what happens when you mistake quiet patience for weakness and underestimate the woman who held the real power all along. Tuesday morning brings the kind of headlines you can't buy with PR spin. Mitchell Marketing, air suspended amid fraud allegations. Scandal rocks Portland business elite. Trust fund manipulation scheme exposed. Society sweetheart's secret. Victory, how a trophy wife saved a family business. I read them all from the comfort of my home office in the Pearl District condo, sipping the rare Japanese matcha Nate always claimed was too refined for my palate. The irony of enjoying his precious collection while watching his world burn isn't lost on me. The Portland business community is in an uproar, Zoe announces, entering with a fresh stack of financial papers. 3 other prominent families have already requested audits of their own companies. Apparently, Nate's scheme has everyone questioning their own financial managers. "His mother's on her way up," Grace adds, checking her phone. The doorman just called. I nod, setting down my teacup. Eleanor Mitchell has always been the family's emotional compass, and I know this meeting won't be easy for her. Rebecca. Eleanor sweeps in, still elegant despite her obvious distress. Have you seen the latest? They're calling it the trust fund takedown of the decade. I guide her to the sitting area, noting how her eyes linger on the empty spaces where Nate's photos once hung. The media will move on to the next scandal soon enough. What matters is protecting the family legacy. The forensic accountants found something else, she says quietly, pulling out a folder. Something worse. I take the documents, though I already know what they'll show. Nate hadn't just been stealing from the company fund, he'd been systematically looting his own family's personal accounts, his sister's children's college funds, his grandmother's medical care reserves, even his parents' retirement accounts. We knew he was troubled, but this. Eleanor's voice breaks. Everything will be restored, I assure her, pulling up the recovery plan I'd prepared months ago. Every account has been reconciled, every stolen dollar traced and returned. My phone buzzes with an update from the corporate investigation. Team, they've found Nate's secret storage unit in Southeast Portland. Inside, boxes of falsified documents detail years of financial manipulation, all the evidence they need for criminal charges. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant calls from the doorway. Mr. Nathan is in the lobby, demanding to be let up. He's not taking no for an answer. I pull up the security feed on my laptop. Nate, disheveled and desperate, is arguing with the doorman. His Brooks Brothers suit, the one he wore to so many client meetings with Olivia, is wrinkled from a night in the budget motel. Should I call security? The assistant asks. No need, I reply, pressing a button on my phone. The police are already on their way. Anonymous tip about a person of interest in a corporate fraud investigation causing a disturbance. Eleanor flinches at my words, but doesn't object. Even a mother's love has its limits. The company council is meeting in an hour, Zoe reminds me, checking her calendar. They'll want your statement about assuming emergency control. I nod, gathering my materials. In the background, my screens show multiple scenes unfolding simultaneously. Nate being escorted from the building by police, Olivia giving another tearful interview painting herself as another victim of his deception, corporate auditors boxing up evidence from his office, society columnists speculating about the scandal's impact on upcoming charity gala season. Rebecca, Eleanor speaks up suddenly. There's something I need to tell you about why Bill made you trustee 2 years ago. I turn to my mother-in-law, curious. This is one piece of the puzzle I never fully understood. We knew, she says simply, about Nathan's tendencies, the impulsive spending, the risky decisions, the constant need for more. Bill saw it happening at the company, watched him taking bigger and bigger risks with client accounts. So you needed someone to protect the family business from your own son, I finish quietly. Eleanor nods, tears in her eyes. We interviewed dozens of financial experts, considered professional trustees from all the top firms. But Bill said we needed someone Nathan would underestimate, someone he'd never suspect of watching his every move. The trophy wife he thought he'd chosen for her looks rather than her mind, I add, understanding dawning. When we learned about your background in finance, your experience with portfolio management, Eleanor manages a small smile. Well, let's just say Bill has always had an eye for talent. My phone buzzes again, more updates flooding in. Nate's membership at the Arlington Club revoked, his position on the hospital board suspended, his private banking privileges at multiple institutions terminated, his invitation to next month's charity gala rescinded. His lawyer sent over a proposal, Zoe mentions, holding up another document. He's offering to sign a full confession in exchange for a monthly allowance from the company. I almost laugh at the audacity. Let me guess, he still thinks he has something to negotiate with? He's claiming he has evidence of historical company irregularities, says he'll go public if we don't meet his demands. This time, I do laugh, pulling up a particular file on my laptop. You mean these documents? I turn the screen to show decades of pristine company records, each transaction verified, each decision documented, the ones I've had independent auditors reviewing and certifying for the past 2 years. Through the window, I watch as Nate is driven away in a police car, his final attempt at blackmail failing as spectacularly as his other schemes. On my other screens, the Mitchell Marketing Group continues operating smoothly, the transition of power already complete. The family council is ready, my assistant announces. They're waiting in the main boardroom. I gather my things, preparing to officially accept control of the Mitchell family's financial future. Eleanor stands with me, straightening her shoulders with renewed strength. Rebecca, she says softly, thank you. Not just for stopping him, but for saving him from himself. If he'd continued much longer, the damage would have been irreparable. I know, I finish. That's why I had to act now. As we head to the boardroom, my phone shows one final notification. Nate checking into an even cheaper motel, this time in Gresham. How far the mighty have fallen. Mrs. Mitchell, Grace calls out. Judge Williams's? Office just confirmed the emergency hearing is set for tomorrow morning. They'll want your full testimony about the company fund manipulation. I nod, already prepared. My evidence is organized, my statement drafted, my strategy in place. Tomorrow, Nate will learn the full extent of his mistakes. Not just the financial theft, but the fatal error of underestimating the woman he married. One last thing, Zoe adds. The family's PR team wants to know how to handle the press. They're calling you everything from financial avenger to trust fund guardian. Tell them no comment, I reply, stepping into the elevator. The numbers speak for themselves. As we ascend to the boardroom, I think about the day Nate first brought me home to meet his family, how he introduced me as his beautiful art history graduate, emphasizing my looks while dismissing my mind. How he never bothered to read the company documents, never questioned why his father chose his new daughter-in-law as trustee. His last text message still sits unanswered on my phone. Please, baby, just tell me what you want. I'll do anything. Too late, Nate. Too late by exactly 3 years, 4 months, and 9 days. The time it took me to document every lie, trace every theft, and prepare for this moment of perfect justice. The boardroom doors open, revealing the assembled Mitchell family council. Time to show them exactly why Bill chose me to protect their legacy, and why Nate's biggest mistake wasn't stealing from the company fund, but underestimating the woman who controlled it all along. 1 month later, the dust has finally begun to settle. I sit in my new office, the corner suite that once belonged to Nate's father, reviewing the latest company performance reports. The Portland skyline stretches out before me, a glittering testament to 3 decades of Mitchell family success that I helped preserve. The Oregon Business Journal piece just went live, Zoe announces, entering with her tablet. Today's headline, Mitchell Marketing Revival, How Strategic Oversight Saved a Family Business. Any mention of Nate? I ask, though I already know the answer. Only as a cautionary tale. They're calling it the ultimate case study in corporate governance. Your quotes about financial responsibility are featured prominently. I smile, remembering the interview I'd given last week. I'd been careful to focus on the importance of proper oversight rather than personal drama. The Mitchells, after all, still had a reputation to maintain. My phone lights up with a notification from the district attorney's office. Nate's plea deal has been finalized. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's agreed to provide evidence against larger financial fraud schemes he'd become entangled with. His new accommodations are quite a step down from the 9s, Zoe observes dryly, showing me the detention center's location. Though I hear the jumpsuit orange brings out his eyes. Olivia sent another request, Grace adds, entering with more papers. She's offering to write a tell-all about Nate's schemes in exchange for immunity. Tell her the federal prosecutors already have everything they need, I reply, pulling up our evidence files. Her Instagram post provided more than enough documentation. Through my office windows, I can see the company's investment team hard at work under my leadership. They've already recovered every dollar Nate stole, plus implemented new safeguards to prevent future manipulation. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant calls over the intercom, the family council is ready for your quarterly presentation. I gather my materials, including the comprehensive recovery plan I've implemented since taking control. The numbers tell a story of resurrection. Assets secured, investments stabilized, legacy protected. Rebecca, Eleanor greets me warmly as I enter the boardroom. She's adapted to our new dynamic with remarkable grace, treating me more as a daughter than ever now that I've saved her family's business from her own son. The business community is calling you the corporate whisperer, Bill adds with a proud smile. He's fully recovered from his stroke thanks partly to the stress reduction of knowing his company is in capable hands. Speaking of community reactions, Zoe interjects, checking her messages. Nate's old social circle has been quite active. The Arlington Club just voted to remove his name from the membership rolls permanently. I take my place at the head of the boardroom table, the same spot where Nate once practiced his fraudulent presentations. The symmetry isn't lost on me. Before we begin, I address the assembled council. I want to share some updates about our enhanced security measures. My presentation outlines the new system of checks and balances I've implemented, multiple layers of oversight, regular audits, transparent reporting. Everything Nate tried to circumvent, now strengthened beyond manipulation. The forensic team found something interesting in Nate's old files, Grace mentions during a break. Love letters to Olivia, written on company letterhead. He was planning to propose at the family's holiday gala. How romantic, I comment dryly. Nothing says true love like embezzled diamonds. My phone buzzes with another update, Nate's lawyer making one last desperate attempt at negotiation. He's offering to reveal the location of more hidden accounts in exchange for a reduced restitution payment. Tell him not to bother, I instruct Grace. We've already found everything, including the Bitcoin wallet he thought was untraceable. The afternoon brings a steady stream of developments. Nate's remaining club memberships canceled, his social media accounts suspended, his personal credit rating destroyed, his reputation in financial circles irreparable. His sister, Elizabeth, called, Zoe informs me. She's ready to sign over her children's trust fund oversight to you as well. Says she can't think of anyone better to protect their future. I accept the responsibility with a nod. The Mitchell children's futures will be secure, a stark contrast to their uncle's current situation. The media wants to know if you'll attend next month's charity gala, my assistant mentions. You're being honored for your work in financial oversight and corporate governance. Confirm the attendance, I decide, but keep the focus on financial responsibility, not personal drama. As evening approaches, I review one final set of documents, the complete record of Nate's downfall. Company manipulation documented, personal account theft proven, criminal charges filed, family reputation preserved, justice served. My phone shows one last notification for the day, Nate's final attempt to access his old company accounts from the detention center's computer lab. Even now, he hasn't quite accepted his new reality. Should we tell him about the foundation? Zoe asks, referring to the new Mitchell family financial literacy initiative I've established. It's rather ironic, using recovered funds from his theft to educate others about corporate responsibility. Let him read about it in the Oregonian, I reply, closing my laptop. I hear they deliver to federal detention centers. Eleanor appears in my doorway, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Rebecca, we just got Nathan's letter. He's finally apologizing, says he understands now what he lost. Too late, I observe quietly. By exactly 3 years, 5 months, and 14 days. We stand together at my office window, watching the sunset over Portland. Somewhere in a federal detention facility, Nate sits in a cell, probably wondering how his perfect life unraveled so completely. Somewhere in Idaho, Olivia works at her parents' wellness center, her dreams of society life shattered like the trust she helped betray. And here I stand, in the office that once represented everything Nate thought he deserved, protecting the legacy he tried to steal. My phone buzzes with an incoming email, another financial publication requesting an interview about corporate governance. They're calling you the new face of financial stewardship, Eleanor mentions, reading over my shoulder. The woman who modernized corporate oversight. I smile, thinking of all the nights Nate spent explaining basic accounting to his simple wife, never realizing he was lecturing a financial expert about his own impending downfall. The family lawyers want to know if you'll consider writing a book, Zoe adds, about protecting business interests from internal threats. Perhaps, I muse, gathering my things for the day. I certainly have enough material. As I prepare to leave, my security feed shows Nate's last possessions being removed from the condo. His beloved wine collection, his designer wardrobe, his carefully curated art pieces, all being liquidated to repay his debt to the company. One last thing, Grace calls out. The federal prosecutors want to know if you'll testify at his sentencing hearing next month. I consider this, remembering every lie, every betrayal, every moment he underestimated me. No need, I decide. The evidence speaks for itself. Stepping into my private elevator, I think about the day Nate first brought me home to meet his family. How he showcased me like a prize, never bothering to look deeper than the surface. How he dismissed my interest in the family business as cute. My phone holds his final message, sent through his lawyer this morning. I finally understand what you were protecting, what I threw away. I'm sorry. Too late, Nate. You never realized that the real power wasn't in the company itself, but in the trust you betrayed. And now you have the rest of your sentence to contemplate the true cost of underestimating the woman who held your future in her hands all along. 6 months after Nate's sentencing, I stand at the podium of the Portland Financial Forum, addressing a room full of the city's most prominent business leaders and financial advisors. The irony isn't lost on me, speaking about financial security. To the same people who once dismissed me as nothing more than a trophy wife. The greatest threat to family businesses, I tell them, my voice carrying clearly through the grand ballroom of the Nines Hotel, isn't external. It's the complacency that comes from believing your position is untouchable. The audience hangs on every word. After all, the Mitchell marketing case has become required reading at top business schools. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the senior partners, from Columbia Investments approaches after my speech. Your insights on corporate governance are revolutionary. Would you consider joining our board of advisors? I smile, remembering how Nate used to explain basic marketing concepts to me at parties like this. I'll have my office send over my credentials. Grace appears at my elbow with updates from the morning's developments. 4 more family businesses requesting our oversight protocols, 3 interview requests from financial publications, and 1 desperate letter from Nate still trying to explain himself from federal detention. The Financial Literacy Foundation launch is trending, she adds, showing me her tablet. They're calling it a paradigm shift in business education. My phone buzzes with a message from Eleanor Mitchell. The family's annual holiday gala is approaching, and for the first time in decades, it will celebrate not just wealth, but wisdom. The prosecutors sent over Nate's latest statement. Grace joins us, tablet in hand. He's finally admitted to everything, even the schemes we hadn't uncovered yet. I take the tablet, scanning his confession. The depth of his betrayal still manages to surprise me. Hidden accounts in Texas, shell companies in Nevada, plans to drain the family foundation. His cellmate says he spends his days reading financial journals, Zoe mentions. Apparently, he's finally learning about proper business management. Better late than never, I murmur. A notification pops up on my phone. Olivia has resurfaced, this time teaching mindful money management at her parents' wellness center in Boise. Her Instagram bio now reads, "Surviving Toxic Wealth, My Journey to Authenticity." At least someone learned something, I observe. Dryly. The company council meeting is in an hour, my assistant reminds me. They're voting on the new governance structure you proposed. I gather my materials, including the comprehensive reform package I've spent months developing. The Mitchell family business won't just survive this crisis. It will emerge stronger, setting new standards for corporate management. "Rebecca," Bill Mitchell's voice booms across the ballroom. He's fully recovered now, his natural vigor restored once the stress of Nate's betrayal was removed. "The Harvard Business School case study about your handling of the crisis just went live." I join him at a quiet corner table, accepting a glass of champagne. "How's Eleanor holding up?" "Better," he sighs. "The therapist says accepting Nate's true nature was the first step. Your protection of the family business gave her the space to focus on healing." My phone shows another alert. Nate's former office has been completely transformed into the Mitchell Center for Business Ethics. The plaque outside reads, "Protecting Legacy Through Integrity." The family lawyers finished processing the last of his restitution payments. Grace approaches with more updates. Every dollar he stole has been recovered and reinvested. Through the ballroom's windows, I can see the Portland skyline, the same view Nate used to boast about controlling from his corner office. Now that same office serves as command central for protecting family businesses from people like him. The financial media is calling it the Mitchell Standard. Zoe shows me another article. "Your protocols for corporate governance are being adopted by companies across the Northwest." I think about the day Nate first showed me his family's offices, how he patronizingly explained the concept of marketing ROI while I mentally cataloged every weakness in their security system. "Your next appointment is here," my assistant announces. "The Keller family's representatives want to discuss implementing your oversight systems." As I prepare for the meeting, my security feed shows one last image of Nate's former life being dismantled, his prized art collection being auctioned to repay his debt to the company. The same collection he used to lecture me about, never realizing I'd majored in both art history and finance. "Judge Williams called," Grace adds. "She's recommending your case as required reading for corporate court judges. Says it's the most comprehensive business protection strategy she's ever seen." My phone buzzes with a notification from the Federal Detention Center. Nate has requested permission to enroll in online financial management courses. "Trying to understand where I went wrong," his note reads. "Should we tell him about the Foundation's new educational program?" Zoe asks. "The one teaching business heirs how to detect and prevent internal fraud?" "Let him figure it out," I reply, straightening my tailored blazer. He always said he learned best through experience. Eleanor joins us, elegant as ever in her role as family matriarch. "The Holiday Gala Committee has a suggestion. They want to honor you as guardian of legacy." I shake my head, remembering all the galas where Nate paraded me around like an accessory. No honors, the secured business speaks for itself. Through my phone, I watch various scenes unfold across the city. Federal investigators using my case to train new financial crime specialists. Business schools teaching the Mitchell case as a master class in corporate protection. Society columnists speculating about Nate's life behind bars. Financial advisors studying my oversight protocols. "One last thing," Zoe calls out as I head to my next meeting. "Nate's old social club is reopening their membership waitlist. Care to submit his replacement's name?" I smile, thinking of all the times he used that club to impress his mistresses, flaunting the wealth he was secretly stealing. I have a better idea. Let's turn it into another foundation office. Something about financial literacy for future generations. The afternoon sun streams through the hotel's windows, catching the diamond on my left hand. Not my engagement ring from Nate, but my grandmother's ring, a symbol of true family legacy. On my desk, the latest company reports show growth that would have been impossible under Nate's manipulation. "Mrs. Mitchell," my assistant interrupts gently, "the Wall Street Journal is here for your interview about transforming corporate governance." I gather my thoughts, remembering every step of this journey. The quiet wife who watched and waited, the financial expert who documented every lie, the trustee who protected generations of wealth, the woman who refused to be underestimated. My phone shows one final notification for the day, Nate's lawyer making a last desperate pitch for leniency. "He's a changed man," the message pleads. "He understands now what he lost." Too late, I think, heading to the interview. Some lessons come at a price no trust fund can cover. As I take my seat across from the journalist, I catch my reflection in the window. No longer the trophy wife Nate thought he married, but the guardian of legacy he never knew he needed. The reporter's first question makes me smile. "Mrs. Mitchell, how does it feel to have revolutionized corporate protection?" "It feels," I reply, thinking of Nate in his cell, finally learning the true meaning of trust. Exactly like justice. 1 year to the day after Nate's downfall, I stand in my office at Mitchell Tower, watching the sun rise over Portland. The view is different from up here, both literally and figuratively. The past year has transformed not just the Mitchell fortune, but the entire landscape of business management in the Pacific Northwest. My phone lights up with the morning's first notification. Portland Business Monthly has just released their annual Power Players issue. The cover story, "The Woman Who Changed Corporate Management Forever, Rebecca Mitchell's Revolution." The New York Times piece just went live too, Grace announces, entering with her signature stack of updates. "They're calling you the silent guardian of generational wealth." I scan the headline, amused by the irony. A year ago, these same publications barely noticed me. Just another pretty wife in Portland's social circus. Now they're studying my methods in business schools. Nate's latest letter arrived, Grace adds quietly, placing a thin envelope on my desk. Unlike his early desperate pleas, this one is different. A simple handwritten confession of every mistake, every betrayal, every moment of hubris that led to his downfall. He's finally completed the financial literacy program in prison, Zoe mentions, checking her tablet. Graduated top of his class, ironically enough. Says he finally understands what he was supposed to be protecting. Through my office windows, I can see the bustling financial district, the same streets where Nate once strutted like a prince, never realizing he was walking toward his own destruction. Now those same streets are home to a new era of financial governance, shaped by the lessons of his fall. The Mitchell Family Foundation's annual report is ready for review, my assistant announces. The new financial literacy programs have reached over 8,000 business heirs this year. I take the report, pleased to see the impact of our work. What Nate tried to destroy has become a beacon of financial wisdom, helping other families protect their legacies from similar threats. Eleanor's on her way up, Grace informs me. The family council approved your proposal for the new corporate governance structure. When my mother-in-law enters, she carries herself with renewed strength. The past year has changed her too, from a woman blindsided by her son's betrayal to a fierce advocate for financial accountability. "Rebecca," she begins, emotion thick in her voice, "the family wants you to know that what you've built from this tragedy, it's beyond anything we could have imagined." My phone buzzes with updates that underscore her words. 5 more financial institutions adopting the Mitchell protocols, 3 international banking conferences requesting keynote speeches, 1. Prestigious Corporate Security Award nomination. Olivia sent another interview request, Zoe mentions. She's writing a book about financial infidelity. Wants your perspective. I decline with a simple email. Some stories don't need more telling. They need understanding. The company performance reports are in. Grace adds, pulling up the latest figures. Growth is up 37% since you took control. Every dollar Nate stole has been recovered and multiplied. Through my security feeds, I can see multiple scenes playing out. Business school students studying the Mitchell case, financial advisors implementing my protection protocols, corporate managers reviewing their security measures, future generations learning from Nate's mistakes. His parole hearing is next month, Zoe reminds me gently. They want to know if you'll submit a statement. I consider this, remembering every step of our journey. The quiet wife who watched and learned, the expert who documented every lie, the guardian who protected a legacy, the woman who refused to be underestimated. Send them this, I decide, pulling up the company's latest performance report. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Eleanor touches my arm gently. He asks about you, in his letters. Says he finally understands what he had. Not just the money, but the trust. Some lessons, I reply, watching a new class of financial advisors enter the Mitchell Center for Business Ethics below. Come too late to change the past, but early enough to protect the future. My phone shows one final update. Nate's old office has been completely transformed into a state-of-the-art financial security center. The plaque outside reads, "Protecting Tomorrow's Legacy Today." The next generation of Mitchells starts their financial education program tomorrow, Zoe reminds me. Would you like to speak to them? I think about these children, Nate's nieces and nephews, the future of the family he betrayed. Thanks to our new protocols, they'll grow up understanding not just the privilege of wealth, but the responsibility of legacy. Tell them the truth, I decide, about trust, betrayal, and the price of underestimating those we dismiss. As the sun sets on another day in Portland's financial district, I stand at my office window holding Nate's final letter. In it, he finally asks the question that took him a fortune and his freedom to understand. How did I not see who you really were? The answer, of course, was simple. He never looked past his own reflection. My phone shows one last notification. The Mitchell family business has just been named a gold standard in corporate governance. The legacy Nate tried to destroy has emerged stronger, wiser, and more secure than ever. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant calls out, they're ready for you in the boardroom. The next generation is waiting. I gather my materials, preparing to teach tomorrow's leaders the lessons learned from yesterday's mistakes. Through the window, Portland glitters like the fortune I protected. Beautiful, powerful, and worth every moment of patient waiting. As I head to the boardroom, I pass the wall of Mitchell family photos. Nate's portrait has been replaced by something more meaningful. A simple plaque that reads, "True wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we protect." Some must learn this lesson through loss. Others are chosen to teach it through strength. In the end, Nate got exactly what he deserved. Time to contemplate the true cost of underestimating a woman he thought he could control. And I got what I earned. A legacy protected, a family restored, and a future secured by the quiet power of patient justice. The story of the Mitchell business will be told for generations, not as a tragedy of betrayal, but as a testament to the strength that lies in being underestimated. And somewhere in a federal prison cell, Nate finally understands the most expensive lesson of his life. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should have feared the most. As I enter the grand auditorium of Portland State University's business school, the room falls silent. 300 eager faces turn toward me, notebooks open, recording devices ready. Today's lecture has been sold out for weeks, with even faculty members standing at the back of the hall. Welcome to our Distinguished Speaker Series. Dean Harrison introduces me with obvious reverence. Rebecca Mitchell needs no introduction, but I'll give her one anyway. Architect of the Mitchell Standard, guardian of one of Oregon's most prominent family businesses, and the woman who single-handedly transformed how we think about corporate protection. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Mitchell. The applause is thunderous as I take my place at the podium. 500 miles away, in a federal prison classroom, Nate watches this live stream as part of his financial rehabilitation program. His counselor thought it would be instructive. I can only imagine his face as he watches his former wife address the elite of the business world. "Thank you, Dean Harrison," I begin, my voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Today I want to discuss something rarely acknowledged in business education: the danger of misplaced trust and the power of strategic patience." For the next hour, I walk these future business leaders through the anatomy of betrayal and protection, careful to never mention Nate by name. The Mitchell case study is famous enough that I don't need to spell it out. I watch understanding dawn in their eyes as they connect theoretical principles to the very real drama that played out in Portland's business community. The fundamental mistake, I explain, approaching my conclusion, wasn't the embezzlement itself. Financial crimes happen everywhere. The critical error was underestimating someone based on superficial assessments, believing that beauty precluded intelligence, that compliance indicated weakness, that silence meant ignorance. In the front row, a young woman's hand shoots up. "Mrs. Mitchell, what would you say was the most important factor in your success? The financial expertise or the patience to wait for the perfect moment?" I smile, thinking of those long nights documenting every transaction, every lie. "Neither," I reply. "It was the absolute certainty that justice would eventually prevail. When you know you're right, truly right, you can afford to wait for the perfect checkmate." After the lecture, Dean Harrison hosts a small reception in the faculty lounge. Business leaders from across the state mingle with professors and selected students, all eager for a moment of my time. "The Mitchell Foundation scholarship has changed my life," a young woman tells me, her eyes bright with emotion. "I'm the first in my family to attend college. Your financial literacy program helped my parents understand how to manage my educational fund." These are the moments that matter most. The real impact of what rose from the ashes of Nate's betrayal. Not fame or accolades, but tangible change in people's lives. My phone vibrates discreetly. Grace's message is simple. He watched the entire lecture. His counselor reports he was visibly affected. Good, I think. Education was always what Nate needed most. As the reception winds down, Dean Harrison approaches with the university president. "Mrs. Mitchell, we'd like to discuss the possibility of establishing a permanent Mitchell Center for Corporate Ethics here at PSU. Your foundation's work aligns perfectly with our mission." "Send the proposal to my office," I reply. "I'm always interested in expanding educational opportunities." On the drive back to Mitchell Tower, I watch Portland pass by outside my window. The city has changed in the year since the scandal broke, or perhaps I simply see it differently now. Every building, every business represents stories untold, legacies either protected or vulnerable. The International Business Ethics Conference called again, Zoe informs me from the front seat. "They're offering to name their keynote address after you if you'll commit to a 5-year appearance schedule." "Tell them I'll consider it," I reply, watching a young couple window shopping outside the very jewelry store where Nate purchased Olivia's necklace. But I prefer to maintain flexibility. Back at Mitchell Tower, Eleanor waits in my office, elegant as ever in a tailored suit that matches her new role as foundation chairwoman. "The family council meeting went perfectly," she announces. "The expansion into sustainable investment was approved unanimously." I smile. Remember how Nate had scoffed at my suggestions about environmental responsibility? Too soft, he'd called it. Now the Mitchell Sustainable Portfolio outperforms all our traditional investments. Bill asked me to give you this, Eleanor adds, placing a small box on my desk. Inside rests a key, small, antique, and instantly recognizable to anyone in the Mitchell family. The key to the founder's desk, I whisper, genuinely moved. For 4 generations, this key has symbolized leadership of the Mitchell enterprises, passed down through the family with solemn ceremony. Bill says it belongs to you now, Eleanor explains, her eyes moist. Not as Nathan's wife, but as the true guardian of everything Edward Mitchell built when he founded the company in 1937. I close my fingers around the key, feeling the weight of its history and meaning. There's something else, Eleanor continues, her voice hesitant. Nathan's counselor contacted us. Part of his rehabilitation involves making amends where possible. He's asked permission to write you a formal apology, not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging the harm he caused. I consider this for a long moment. He can write it. Whether I read it is another matter. Eleanor nods, understanding the boundaries I've established. The foundation gala is next month, she reminds me before leaving. The theme committee suggested resilience and renewal. Perfect, I agree. The symmetry is appropriate. 1 year from Nate's downfall to the complete resurrection of everything he nearly destroyed. After Eleanor leaves, I stand at my window watching twilight settle over Portland. In the reflection of the glass, I see not just myself, but the shadow of who I was when this all began. The woman Nate thought he'd married, the facade I maintained while building the case that would save his family's legacy from his own greed. My phone rings, a Seattle number I don't recognize. Mrs. Mitchell, a woman's voice I vaguely recognize. This is Claire Donovan from Pacific Northwest Financial Regulators. We've been studying your corporate protection model, and we'd like to incorporate elements of it into our new regulatory framework. Would you be willing to consult? Send me the details, I reply. I'm always interested in protecting more than just one family's legacy. After the call, Grace enters with the daily summary report. Olivia's book deal fell through, she informs me with a touch of satisfaction. Apparently, publishers weren't convinced of her victim narrative after reviewing the evidence. I nod, unsurprised. The truth has a way of asserting itself, given time. The Mitchell Standard Certification Program has 37 companies on the waiting list, she continues. The verification team can't keep up with demand. Hire more forensic accountants, I decide. Quality can't be compromised. 1 more thing, Grace adds, her expression carefully neutral. Nate's cellmate was released yesterday. He approached one of our foundation representatives at the re-entry program. I raise an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. He said Nate keeps your Harvard Business Review cover on his wall. Apparently, he tells new inmates that his greatest achievement was marrying a financial genius, even though he was too stupid to realize it until she took everything. I allow myself a small smile. Perhaps there's hope for him yet. As night falls over Portland, I review one final set of documents, the prospectus for the Mitchell Financial Literacy Academy, set to open next year. What began as a response to betrayal has evolved into something far more significant, a transformation in how family businesses protect themselves from threats both external and internal. My phone shows one last notification, a message from Bill Mitchell. Rebecca, what you've built this year is nothing short of miraculous. Thank you for seeing what the rest of us missed, both the danger and the opportunity. I close my laptop, gathering my things to head home. The condo in the Pearl District still holds memories of Nate, but they've faded like old photographs, replaced by new purposes, new achievements, new perspectives. In the elevator, I check tomorrow's schedule: breakfast with the governor to discuss financial protection legislation, a meeting with international investors interested in the Mitchell approach, lunch with Eleanor to finalize the foundation's 5-year plan, an afternoon interview with Forbes, and dinner with Thomas from Goldman Sachs, who's flying in specifically to discuss a nationwide expansion of our protection protocols. Not bad, I think, for a trophy wife who was supposedly not good with numbers. The elevator doors open to the private garage where my car waits. As I slide into the driver's seat, my phone lights up with a final message from Nate's prison email account, strictly monitored by corrections officials. Today, I finally understood. It was never about the money. It was about trust. I broke the most valuable thing I had, and all the financial knowledge in the world can't rebuild it. You were right when you said some lessons come too late to change the past. I hope one day to be worthy of the lesson you taught me. I start the car, neither accepting nor rejecting his epiphany. Some reconciliations aren't mine to offer. Some paths he'll need to walk alone. As I drive through nighttime Portland, the city gleams with possibility. From betrayal came strength. From deception came transparency. From attempted destruction came renewal. Tomorrow, a new chapter begins. Not defined by Nate's shadow, but illuminated by the light of everything built in the wake of his mistakes. The Mitchell legacy continues, stronger than ever, protected by the woman no one saw coming, the secret weapon hiding in plain sight. Sometimes the quietest person in the room isn't quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're paying attention. And in the end, that makes all the difference. 18 months after taking control of Mitchell Marketing Group, I find myself standing before the Senate Committee on Corporate Accountability. Washington, D.C. in early spring has a particular energy. Cherry blossoms beginning to bloom against the backdrop of marble monuments to power and permanence. Mrs. Mitchell, Senator Harris begins, her voice amplified through the chamber. Your testimony today provides a unique perspective on detecting and preventing internal corporate fraud. Could you explain to the committee how your background in both finance and art history gave you insights others might have missed? A murmur ripples through the packed hearing room. The question is unexpected, but revealing. The senator has done her homework, understanding that my strength came not from a single discipline, but from the intersection of seemingly unrelated fields. Certainly, Senator, I reply, adjusting the microphone. Art history trained me to see patterns and inconsistencies others might overlook. There's a concept called provenance, tracking the ownership history of valuable pieces. I applied that same methodology to financial transactions, creating lineage maps for money movements that revealed problematic patterns. I pause, knowing that somewhere, in a minimum security prison library, Nate might be watching this testimony as part of his rehabilitation program. When you study portraiture, I continue, you learn that what's most revealing isn't what the subject wants you to see, but what they unconsciously display. The same principle applies to financial manipulation. The transactions someone tries to hide often tell a more honest story than the ones they showcase. For the next 2 hours, I walk the committee through the Mitchell methodology, now being implemented in corporations across America. The questions are probing, substantive, respectful. No one in this room sees me as a trophy wife who got lucky. They see the architect of a system that's already saved dozens of family businesses from internal collapse. Your recommendations will be invaluable as we draft new legislation, Senator Harris concludes. Thank you for your contribution to protecting America's business integrity. As I gather my materials, a senior aide approaches with a business card. The Treasury Secretary would like to meet with you privately tomorrow morning, if your schedule permits. I nod, unsurprised. The Mitchell standard has attracted attention from regulatory bodies worldwide. What began as one woman's effort to protect a single-family business has evolved into something far more significant. A fundamental rethinking of how we safeguard corporate assets from their supposed stewards. Outside the Capitol, Grace meets me with updates from Portland. The Mitchell Center for Business Ethics just received a $20 million endowment from the Harrington Foundation. They want to expand the curriculum nationwide. Approve it, I decide, sliding into the waiting car. But maintain our oversight on content development. As we drive through DC to my hotel, I check the secure messages on my phone. The first is from Eleanor Mitchell, who's running the family foundation while I manage the business enterprises. Rebecca, your testimony was magnificent. Bill couldn't be prouder if you were his own daughter. The new intern program you suggested has 300+ applications for 15 spots. Sending you the shortlist tonight. The second message is from Thomas at Goldman Sachs. Mitchell standard certification requests have doubled since you announced the Senate testimony. We've implemented the automated verification protocols you designed, but even with AI assistance, we're struggling to keep pace with demand. Consider raising the certification fee? The third makes me pause. It's from Zoe, marked urgent. Judge, Williams just called. Nate has petitioned for early release based on extraordinary rehabilitation. His case manager submitted documentation of his work teaching financial ethics to other inmates, hearing scheduled for June 15th. Judge wants to know if you'll submit a statement. I stare out the window at the Washington Monument, considering the implications. Nate has served barely half his sentence. His extraordinary rehabilitation is certainly convenient timing. Your meeting at Treasury is confirmed for 8 a.m., Grace says, not noticing my momentary distraction. They've allocated 90 minutes. The secretary mentioned something about international standards. Tell Zoe I'll think about Judge Williams's request, I reply, tucking my phone away. And move my flight back to Portland to tomorrow afternoon. I want to be home for the quarterly board meeting. At the Four Seasons, a package awaits me at the front desk. A gift from Bill and Eleanor Mitchell. Inside is a first edition copy of Financial Integrity in Family Enterprises by Elizabeth Morley, published in 1963 and long out of print. A handwritten note reads, "She was ahead of her time, so are you. With gratitude always, B&E." I smile, touched by their thoughtfulness. What began as an alliance of necessity has evolved into genuine family bonds that transcend the betrayal that created them. In my suite, I review the next day's talking points for Treasury, but my mind keeps returning to Nate's petition. After nearly 2 years of silence between us, this legal maneuver feels like an unwelcome intrusion. I've rebuilt the Mitchell empire, expanded its reach, secured its future. Nate has become irrelevant to my daily reality. And yet, I open my laptop and access the secure server where we maintain all records related to the Mitchell case. Within minutes, I'm reviewing Nate's prison file, obtained through channels that are not entirely conventional but thoroughly reliable. His prison record is, I must admit, impressive. Perfect behavioral assessments, completion of every available financial management course, creation of a peer education program that's been adopted by 3 other federal facilities, letters of support from prison administrators, even publication of a monograph on ethical decision-making in corporate settings. It could all be an elaborate performance, of course. Nate was always skilled at playing whatever role served his immediate interests. The charming husband, the dedicated executive, the remorseful inmate. My phone rings. Zoe, calling despite the late hour in Portland. "I thought you'd want to know immediately," she says without preamble. "Olivia Parker just landed a book deal with Harcourt. Working title, Collateral Damage. My Life as the Other Woman in America's Most Famous Corporate Fraud Case." I feel a flicker of genuine amusement. Let me guess. She portrays herself as an unwitting victim? Exactly, Zoe confirms. Advance? Copies are being sent to key media figures next week. Publication is timed to coincide with Nate's early release hearing, I finish for her. Of course it is. The pieces click into place. This isn't a coincidence. Nate's petition, Olivia's sudden book deal, the timing of it all, it's coordinated. A campaign to rewrite history. with me cast as the cold, calculating wife who coldly orchestrated a husband's downfall. "What would you like me to do?" Zoe asks. I consider the question carefully. The easiest response would be counterattack. Leak the full documentation of Olivia's complicity, release the text messages where she and Nate planned their future using stolen Mitchell money. We have everything we would need to discredit her. Narrative before it gains traction. But something stops me. Fighting this battle on their terms would only give it oxygen, turning a footnote into a headline. Nothing, I decide. We do absolutely nothing. Nothing? Zoe sounds incredulous. The truth doesn't need our defense, Zoe. It stands on its own. Let Olivia publish whatever fiction serves her purposes. The financial world knows what really happened. The Mitchell legacy speaks for itself. After we hang up, I step onto the balcony of my suite, looking out over the illuminated monuments of Washington. In the distance, the Capitol dome glows against the night sky, a reminder of enduring institutions designed to withstand individual failings. My phone buzzes with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Warden Jeffries from Sheridan Federal Correctional. Inmate Nathan Mitchell has requested permission to send you a personal letter outside the normal channels of his Legal team, prison policy requires your consent before we can process this request. Please advise." I stare at the message for a long moment, weighing options. What could Nate possibly have to say that would matter now? What words could possibly bridge the chasm his actions created? And yet curiosity tugs at me. Not because I seek reconciliation or harbor any lingering attachment, but because understanding one's adversary is always valuable. "Consent granted," I text back. "Forward to my office address." The next morning, I meet with the Treasury Secretary in her wood-paneled office overlooking the National Mall. For 2 hours, we discuss the implementation of Mitchell-inspired protocols for early detection of internal financial fraud. Her questions are insightful, her grasp of the technical details impressive. "The president has taken a personal interest in your work," she tells me as our meeting concludes. "There's discussion of forming a special commission on corporate governance. Your name is at the top of the list." I thank her for the consideration, promising to review any formal proposal. As I leave the Treasury building, my phone lights up with a cascade of notifications, all variants of the same breaking news. Portland Publishing House acquires rights to Nathan Mitchell's prison memoir. Convicted fraudster, Nathan Mitchell to tell his side of famous case. Dueling narratives, both Nathan Mitchell and former Mistress Olivia Parker sign book deals. I scroll through the headlines with mild interest as my driver navigates through DC traffic toward Reagan National Airport. The timing confirms my suspicion. This is orchestrated, a coordinated attempt to reshape the narrative before Nate's release hearing. Grace calls as I'm boarding the flight to Portland. The publisher reached out to our office, she informs. Me. They're requesting comment for the press release about Nate's book. "What's the working title?" I ask, settling into my first-class seat. "Blind Spots: My Journey from Privilege to Prison." I can't help but laugh. Even now, Nate can't. Resist a marketing-friendly title with a catchy alliteration. "Tell them we have no comment," I instruct Grace. "And inform Judge Williams that I will indeed submit a statement regarding Nate's release petition, but not until I've had the opportunity to review all relevant materials." The flight back to Portland gives me 5 hours of uninterrupted time to consider my strategy. By the time we land, I've made my decision. Mitchell Tower gleams in the afternoon sunlight as my car pulls into the private garage. The building has been renamed since I took control, no longer the Mitchell Marketing Building, but something more encompassing, reflective of the company's expanded mission. In my office, I find Eleanor waiting, concern evident in her expression. "You've seen the news about Nathan's book," she says. It's not a question. "And Olivia's," I confirm, setting down my briefcase. "I assume Bill knows as well?" Eleanor nods. He's furious, wants to issue a cease and desist, claims Nathan signed confidentiality agreements when he joined the company. The agreements? Wouldn't cover personal memoirs, I remind her gently, and attempting to block publication would only generate publicity they couldn't otherwise afford. So we do nothing? Eleanor asks, echoing Zoe's incredulity from the night before. No, I correct her. We don't react. There's a difference. Reaction comes from emotion. Our approach will be strategic, as always. The quarterly board meeting proceeds without any mention of Nate's book deal or release petition. I present the company's performance figures, another record-breaking quarter, and outline my vision for expansion into emerging markets. The board's approval is unanimous, their confidence in my leadership absolute. Afterward, Bill Mitchell pulls me aside. "Rebecca," he begins, his voice low. "There's something you should know. Nathan tried to contact me last month, sent a letter through his attorney. This is unexpected. What did he want?" "To apologize," Bill says simply, "and to ask for my blessing to reach out to you directly." I told him that wasn't my decision to make. I absorbed this information, adding it to the emerging pattern. The petition for early release, the memoir, the request to contact me, the letter being processed by the prison warden, all pieces of a larger strategy. "Thank you for telling me," I reply, squeezing Bill's hand, "and for respecting my boundaries." That evening, alone in the penthouse that once represented Nate's vision of success, I review the day's developments. The Mitchell business is thriving, beyond anyone's expectations. The Foundation's educational programs are transforming financial literacy nationwide. My professional reputation has reached heights Nate could only have dreamed of. And yet, I can't deny a certain symmetry to the situation. Just as I once patiently documented Nate's betrayal while he remained oblivious, I now sense him methodically building some kind of case. For what exactly, I'm not yet certain. My phone chimes with a secure message from Judge Williams. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've reviewed the materials submitted in support of Nathan Mitchell's petition for early release. Before scheduling the hearing, I wanted to alert you to one particular document. Nathan has submitted a comprehensive restitution plan that goes beyond his court-ordered obligations. The plan includes voluntary surrender of certain assets previously excluded from the settlement, including intellectual property rights from his upcoming memoir. Thought you should know before this becomes public." I read the message twice, trying to reconcile this information with my understanding of Nate's character. Voluntary surrender of assets, including book proceeds? It doesn't align with the man I knew, the man who prioritized personal gain above all else. Unless this isn't about money at all. The realization hits me with unexpected force. Nate isn't orchestrating a financial strategy. He's attempting something far more ambitious: moral rehabilitation. Not just in appearance, but in substance. The memoir, the educational programs in prison, the additional restitution. Even Olivia's book might serve his purposes, portraying him as the villain who's genuinely reformed while she remains self-justifying. It's exactly the kind of narrative redemption arc a marketing expert would design. The question becomes, is it genuine? And more importantly, does it matter? The next morning, Nate's letter arrives via courier. The envelope bears the prison stamp and Warden Jeffrey's signature confirming it passed security protocols. Inside is a single page of prison stationery, covered in Nate's distinctive handwriting. "Rebecca, I won't insult your intelligence by asking for forgiveness." Some betrayals transcend forgiveness. They simply become part of the permanent record of who we were at our worst moments. I write not to change your opinion of me, but to acknowledge a truth I've finally understood. You weren't just right about what I did. You were right about who I was. The financial rehabilitation programs here focus on practical skills, understanding ethical boundaries, recognizing destructive patterns, implementing compliance protocols. But my real education came from watching you transform what I nearly destroyed. The Mitchell Standard is being taught here as a case study in corporate protection. During these sessions, I sit silently while other inmates analyze my failures and your solutions. They don't know the architect of this brilliant methodology was the same woman I once patronizingly explained profit margins to at dinner parties. I've requested early release not because I believe I deserve it, but because I've developed an ethics curriculum specifically for family business heirs that my supervisors believe could prevent others from following my path. If released, I would deliver this program through nonprofit organizations, with all proceeds directed to restitution funds for victims of financial crimes. I expect nothing from you. Not acknowledgement, not forgiveness, certainly not support. I simply wanted you to hear directly from me before the public narratives begin to circulate. What you built from the wreckage I created is extraordinary. Whatever happens with my petition, that truth remains unchanged. Nathan. I fold the letter carefully, returning it to its envelope. The words are right. The tone is right. It's exactly what a genuinely reformed man would write. It's also exactly what an expert manipulator would craft. I set the letter aside and turn to my computer, pulling up the proprietary analytics dashboard that tracks all Mitchell-related media and financial data. With a few clicks, I activate our most sophisticated sentiment analysis tools, directing them toward any mention of Nate or Olivia's upcoming books. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant's voice comes through the intercom. Ms. Kim and Ms. Thompson are here for your 9 o'clock. Grace and Zoe enter my office, both carrying tablets loaded with the morning's updates. The warden confirmed you received Nathan's letter, Grace begins. I nod, not elaborating. Early media response to the book announcements is starting to appear, Zoe reports. Financial outlets are approaching it cautiously. Social media is more divided, some portraying Nathan as a reformed sinner, others speculating this is his most sophisticated con yet. And the Mitchell Standard certifications? I ask. Unaffected. Grace confirms. If anything, application rates have increased since yesterday's announcement. Senator Harris called, my assistant interrupts via intercom. She says it's time sensitive. I take the call on speakerphone, with Grace and Zoe still present. Mrs. Mitchell, the senator begins, I wanted to give you advance notice. The corporate accountability legislation we discussed is being fast-tracked. The announcement is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and we'd like you to be present at the Capitol for the press conference. I appreciate the invitation, Senator, but I have commitments here in Portland that can't be rescheduled. We anticipated that possibility, Senator Harris replies smoothly. The committee is prepared to announce that a key provision, the mandatory implementation of fraud detection protocols for all publicly traded companies, will be named the Mitchell Provision in recognition of your contributions. We're also prepared to hold a separate announcement in Portland next week, if that would be more convenient. I hesitate, suddenly understanding the leverage being offered. This legislation, with my name attached to a central provision, would cement the Mitchell Standard as the gold standard for corporate governance nationwide. It would transcend any narrative Nate or Olivia might attempt to construct. It would also, I realize, represent the ultimate victory, transforming a personal trauma into systemic reform that protects countless others. Thank you, Senator. I'd be honored to participate in the Portland announcement. Please have your staff coordinate with my office. After the call ends, Zoe gives me a questioning look. The timing is interesting, isn't it? Just as Nathan and Olivia try to reshape the narrative, you get enshrined in federal legislation. Senator Harris is a skilled politician, I acknowledge. She recognizes an opportunity for bipartisan cooperation on an issue that resonates with voters across the political spectrum. And it doesn't hurt that it completely undercuts whatever narrative Nathan's trying to build, Grace adds with a hint of satisfaction. I turn to the window, looking out over Portland, the city where I was once just Nathan Mitchell's wife. and am now a power in my own right. The symmetry of the situation isn't lost on me. Just as Nate once underestimated me, assuming my silence indicated ignorance, I must be careful not to make similar assumptions about his capacity for genuine change. Schedule a call with Judge Williams, I instruct Grace. I've made my decision about Nathan's release petition. Both women look at me with surprise. Already? Zoe asks. Don't you want to wait and see what's in his book? I shake my head. I don't need to read Nathan's version of events to know what happened. And my decision isn't based on what he says about the past, but on what the evidence shows about the present. As they leave my office, I return to Nate's letter, reading it one more time with the practiced eye of someone who spent years studying his patterns of deception. The words are perfectly calibrated, humble without being self-pitying, acknowledging without seeking absolution. Either Nate has experienced a genuine transformation, developing an unprecedented level of self-awareness and ethical clarity, or he's executing the most sophisticated manipulation of his career. In the end, I realize it doesn't actually matter which interpretation is correct. My response would be the same either way. I pick up the phone and dial Judge Williams' chambers directly. Her clerk puts me through immediately. Mrs. Mitchell, the judge greets me. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. I've reviewed the materials related to Nathan Mitchell's petition, I begin, my voice steady. I've also received personal communication from him outlining his proposed activities if granted early release. And your position on his petition? Judge Williams prompts. I take a deep breath, knowing that my next words will shape not just Nate's future, but in some ways, the final chapter of our shared history. I will not oppose Nathan Mitchell's petition for early release, I state clearly. Furthermore, I am prepared to submit a statement confirming that all required restitution has been paid in full and acknowledging the apparent efforts at rehabilitation documented by prison authorities. There's a moment of silence on the line. When Judge Williams speaks again, I can hear the careful neutrality in her tone. May I ask what influenced your decision, Mrs. Mitchell? Given the history, many would expect you to oppose this petition strenuously. The question deserves an honest answer, one that I've only just fully articulated for myself. Justice has already been served, Your Honor. Nathan Mitchell lost everything that mattered to him: his position, his reputation, his family connections, his freedom. He's paid his court-ordered debts and appears to be making genuine efforts toward redemption. Continuing to punish him serves no purpose that I can discern. That's remarkably magnanimous, Judge Williams observes. It's not magnanimity, I correct her gently. It's pragmatism. The Mitchell businesses have thrived in his absence. The educational initiatives we've implemented are transforming corporate governance nationwide. My professional standing has never been stronger. Nathan Mitchell's continued incarceration or release has no material impact on any of those realities. I see, the judge replies, understanding dawning in her voice. You're saying that opposing his release would suggest he still has some power to affect you or the Mitchell enterprises. Exactly, I confirm. And we both know that's not the case. After the call, I stand at my window watching the late morning sun illuminate Mount Hood in the distance. The mountain stands as it has for millennia, unmoved by the temporary dramas that unfold beneath it. In refusing to oppose Nate's petition, I've made my final statement about our shared history. He no longer has the power to threaten what I've built. His freedom is irrelevant to my continued success. His narrative, whether genuine redemption or elaborate manipulation, cannot touch the Mitchell legacy I've established. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant's voice interrupts my thoughts. The team is assembled for the strategy session regarding the legislative announcement. I turn from the window, leaving thoughts of Nate behind. I'll be right there. The future awaits, and it belongs to those who protected the legacy, not those who betrayed it. 5 years after the Mitchell scandal first erupted, I find myself standing at the podium of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Snow-capped Alps rise majestically outside the floor-to-ceiling windows as I address an audience of global financial leaders, tech visionaries, and policymakers. Trust is the invisible infrastructure of business, I explain, my voice carrying through the hushed auditorium. When it collapses, the damage extends far beyond balance sheets. The Mitchell methodology isn't merely about preventing fraud, it's about creating systems where ethical behavior becomes the path of least resistance. The audience: CEOs of multinational corporations, finance ministers from 6 continents, regulatory chiefs from the world's most powerful economies. Listen, with the focused attention normally reserved for market-moving announcements. In 5 short years, the Mitchell Standard has evolved from a corporate rehabilitation strategy to a global governance framework implemented by 12 of the G20 nations. Our research at the Institute indicates that for every dollar invested in preventative ethics infrastructure, organizations save an average of $27 in potential fraud losses, I continue, clicking to my next slide. But the true return on investment extends beyond financial metrics to encompass brand integrity, employee retention, and systemic resilience. From the corner of my eye, I notice Thomas, now Chief Strategy Officer of the Mitchell Institute for Financial Integrity, giving me a subtle thumbs up from the side of the stage. What began as a necessary response to personal betrayal has blossomed into something that even my most optimistic projections couldn't have anticipated. After my presentation, during the executive reception in a glass-walled atrium overlooking the Swiss Alps, I'm approached by an austere woman with silver hair and impeccable posture, the finance minister of Germany. "Mrs. Mitchell," she begins in lightly accented English, "your methodology has been implemented across our banking sector with remarkable results. The Chancellor has asked if you would consider consulting on our national financial resilience framework." I smile, accepting a flute of champagne from a passing server. "I'd be honored to discuss the possibilities, Minister Brecht. The Mitchell Institute has developed specialized protocols for federal implementation that might align with your objectives." As we discuss potential collaboration, I catch a glimpse of a familiar profile across the crowded reception. Nate, deep in conversation with a small group of academics. His position at INSEAD has evidently earned him entree to this exclusive gathering, though he occupies a much different stratum of influence than the one he once presumed would be his birthright. Minister Brecht follows my glance. "You know Professor Mitchell?" she asks. "We have history," I reply neutrally. "His ethics curriculum at INSEAD has garnered significant attention," she observes. "Our banking regulatory authority has incorporated elements of his rehabilitative framework into our compliance training. Quite a remarkable redemption story." I nod politely, neither confirming nor contradicting her assessment. Nate's professional rehabilitation appears genuine, though I maintain a healthy skepticism born of intimate knowledge of his former capacity for deception. Still, the ethics program he's developed for European business schools has earned legitimate acclaim, focusing specifically on the psychological patterns that lead educated professionals to rationalize increasingly serious ethical breaches. "If you'll excuse me, Minister," I say, spotting the SEC chairwoman signaling from across the room. "I believe my next appointment has arrived. My office will contact yours about potential consultation dates." As I navigate through the crowded reception, I notice Nate has seen me as well. He offers a respectful nod from across the room, but makes no attempt to approach, continuing to honor the boundaries established during his probation, even years after its technical conclusion. It's one of many indicators suggesting his reformation might be substantive rather than merely strategic. The remainder of the Davos conference unfolds in a whirlwind of high-level meetings, panel discussions, and strategic negotiations. The Mitchell Institute's methodology is being incorporated into the Basel IV banking regulations, while our educational framework is being adopted by business schools across 6 continents. What began as one woman's effort to protect a single family business has evolved into a global movement reshaping how financial integrity is conceptualized and implemented. On the final evening of the conference, a private dinner is held for the principal architects of the new international financial ethics framework. Seated around an elegant table in a 14th century chateau overlooking Lake Geneva, 23 individuals represent the vanguard of a paradigm shift in global financial governance, and I find myself at the head of the table. "A toast," offers the IMF managing director, raising her glass, "to Rebecca Mitchell, whose personal courage transformed individual betrayal into institutional protection for us all." Glasses clink as murmurs of agreement circle the table. In this rarefied atmosphere, among the most sophisticated financial minds of our generation, my journey from underestimated trophy wife to architectural visionary feels complete. Later that evening, returning to my suite at the Alpenigstad, I find an unmarked envelope that has been slipped under my door. Inside is a handwritten note on insaid stationery. "Rebecca, I observed your Davos keynote from the academic section. Your evolution of the Mitchell Standard into a comprehensive governance framework represents precisely the kind of systemic protection that might have prevented my own ethical collapse. The preventative architecture you've designed isn't merely impressive, it's transformative. You've created something that will protect countless organizations from people like the man I was. What you've built transcends our shared history and stands as a legacy that will outlive us both. Respectfully, Nathan." I study the note, searching for hidden agendas or manipulative undertones, but find only straightforward professional acknowledgement. 5 years ago, such a message would have triggered suspicion or resentment. Now it registers as a minor footnote in a journey that has long since transcended its catalytic betrayal. I set the note aside and open my laptop to review the next day's commitments before sleep claims me. An email from Eleanor Mitchell awaits, with photographs, attached of the Mitchell Institute's Portland campus expansion. The institute now occupies an entire city block downtown, its architecture an embodiment of its principles, transparent, structurally sound, forward-looking yet grounded in timeless values. "The East Wing construction is ahead of schedule," Eleanor writes. "Bill insisted on touring the site yesterday despite the weather, and declared it exactly what Edward would have wanted. The Family Council approved your international expansion proposal unanimously. London and Singapore facilities will break ground next quarter." I smile, touched by Bill's reference to his grandfather Edward, the Mitchell family patriarch whose legacy I've not only protected but expanded beyond anything he might have imagined. The Mitchell name, which might have been irreparably tarnished by Nate's betrayal, now stands as a global synonym for financial integrity, a transformation few would have thought possible 5 years ago. A text message illuminates my phone. Zoe checking in from Portland, where she now serves as Chief Operating Officer of the Mitchell Foundation. "Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund meeting confirmed for next month. They want to implement the Mitchell Standard across their entire portfolio. Also, the FBI Financial Crimes Division has requested additional training sessions for their investigative teams. Apparently, our certification is becoming standard evidence in federal fraud prosecutions." The Mitchell certification, a rigorous evaluation process I developed to verify corporate governance integrity, has become the gold standard for businesses seeking to demonstrate their commitment to ethical practices. What began as a responsive strategy to one man's betrayal has evolved into a proactive framework embraced by forward-thinking organizations worldwide. I reply to Zoe's message, confirming both engagements, then prepare for bed, my mind already mapping tomorrow's strategic possibilities. The Mitchell methodology has been nominated for the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences, recognition that would cement its academic credibility and accelerate its global implementation. As I drift toward sleep in my luxurious Swiss hotel suite, I reflect on the unlikely journey that brought me here. From the wife who discovered betrayal to the strategist who documented it. From the trustee who protected a legacy to the visionary who transformed it. From the woman who was underestimated to the leader who is now revered. The symmetry feels profound, the circle complete. Nate's greatest mistake wasn't the financial crimes he committed or even the trust he betrayed. It was his fundamental failure to see the person right in front of him, to recognize that the woman he considered merely decorative possessed the intelligence and determination to not only uncover his deception, but to build something extraordinary from its aftermath. Morning brings crystalline alpine clarity and a schedule packed with final conference commitments. As I prepare for the day, my phone rings with an unexpected caller ID. Judge Williams, now retired from the bench but serving on the Mitchell Institute's Ethics Advisory Board. "Rebecca," she begins without preamble, "I thought you should hear this directly from me." NPR is running a special investigative series on financial rehabilitation. They've chosen Nathan as one of their primary case studies. I pause in the act of selecting earrings, processing this information. Did he agree to participate? Apparently so, Judge Williams confirms. The focus is on his ethics curriculum and its impact on recidivism rates among white-collar offenders. The producer contacted me for background context on his case. I wanted to ensure you weren't blindsided. "Thank you for the heads up," I reply, appreciating her consideration. It's been 5 years. Nathan's story is his to tell, as mine is mine. That's a remarkably generous perspective, Judge Williams observes. Not generosity, I correct her gently. Pragmatism. The Mitchell Standard has transcended its origins. Its value stands independent of the personal circumstances that inspired its creation. After we disconnect, I complete my preparations for the day's events with practiced efficiency. The final Davos session, a high-level roundtable on implementing ethical frameworks across emerging markets, requires focused attention, yet I find my thoughts drifting periodically to Judge Williams' news. Nate sharing his rehabilitation story publicly represents a significant shift from the private atonement he's pursued since his release. The timing, coinciding with the Mitchell Standard's Nobel nomination and global expansion, seems unlikely to be coincidental. Yet I find myself strangely unbothered by this development. 5 years ago, such public revisiting of our shared history would have felt like an invasion, an unwelcome reopening of carefully closed wounds. Now it registers as merely another data point in the continuing evolution of a narrative that has long since outgrown its original dimensions. The roundtable concludes successfully, with 15 finance ministers committing to implement Mitchell certification processes within their regulatory frameworks. As I gather my materials, I'm approached by a distinguished African woman whose badge identifies her as the central bank governor of Kenya. "Mrs. Mitchell," she begins warmly, "your keynote resonated deeply with our national experience. We've witnessed how financial betrayal can devastate not just families, but entire communities. I believe your methodology could be adapted to address some of our specific challenges with corruption and development funding. I'd be very interested in exploring that application," I reply, genuinely intrigued by this potential expansion of the Mitchell framework. The Institute has been developing protocols for adapting our standards to diverse cultural and economic contexts. "Perhaps you would consider visiting Nairobi to consult directly," she suggests. "We're hosting an African Union Summit on financial governance next quarter." I agree to explore the possibility, mentally adding it to the growing list of international implementation opportunities. The Mitchell Standard, born from personal betrayal in Portland, Oregon, is now being embraced as a solution to financial governance challenges from Switzerland to Kenya, Singapore to Brazil. As my car navigates the winding road from Davos to Zurich International Airport, I review the conference outcomes on my tablet. 17 major implementation agreements, 34 strategic partnerships, $52 million in new funding for the Mitchell Institute's research division. By any objective measure, an extraordinary success. My phone buzzes with an incoming call. Grace, who now serves as executive director of the Mitchell Foundation. The governor's office called, she informs me without preamble. They want to nominate you for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Something about transformative contributions to financial ethics and governance integrity. I smile at the irony, the highest civilian honor in the United States, potentially bestowed upon a woman once dismissed as nothing more than a decorative accessory to her husband's ambitions. Tell them I'm honored by the consideration, I reply, but would need to review any potential conflicts with our international implementation work. Already noted, Grace confirms. Also, the Seattle Times is running a feature on Nathan's ethics curriculum at Washington State Correctional Facilities. They've requested comment from the Institute. I consider this development thoughtfully. Nate's work with incarcerated white-collar criminals represents a logical extension of his in-said curriculum, applying his first-hand understanding of ethical failure to those experiencing similar consequences. Provide a neutral statement acknowledging innovative approaches to financial rehabilitation as complementary to preventative frameworks, I decide. Note that the Mitchell Institute evaluates all ethics curricula based on measurable outcomes, rather than personal narratives. The statement strikes the appropriate balance: professional acknowledgement without personal endorsement, recognition of potential value without claiming association. After 5 years, I've perfected the art of addressing Nate's rehabilitation efforts with detached objectivity. As my plane departs Switzerland, rising above the majestic Alps toward the Atlantic crossing, I review the final communication from the Davos Organizing Committee, an invitation to chair next year's Financial Integrity Summit, a position of global leadership that would have been unimaginable in my previous life as Nathan Mitchell's wife. I accept the invitation provisionally, pending coordination with the Institute's expanding international commitments. My calendar for the coming year already includes congressional testimony on regulatory frameworks, keynote addresses at Central D, banking summits on 4 continents, and strategic consultations with multinational corporations implementing the Mitchell Standard. Midway across the Atlantic, unable to sleep despite the first-class comforts, I find myself reflecting on the journey that brought me to this moment. The initial discovery of Nate's betrayal, the credit card charges that didn't align with his, supposed meetings, the suspicious withdrawals from our joint accounts, the carefully documented pattern of deception that grew more elaborate with each passing month. Those painful revelations which once consumed my waking thoughts have receded into distant memory, important historically but emotionally neutralized by time and transformation. The methodology I developed to document Nate's betrayal has evolved into sophisticated systems protecting millions of stakeholders worldwide from similar exploitation. Perhaps most surprisingly, I find myself occasionally grateful for the catalyst that Nate's betrayal provided, not for the pain it caused, but for the possibilities it inadvertently revealed. Without that traumatic rupture, I might never have discovered my capacity for strategic response, might never have developed the analytical frameworks that now protect countless others from similar harm. As dawn breaks over the eastern seaboard, my thoughts turn to the future rather than the past. The Mitchell Institute's 5-year strategic plan includes establishing regional implementation centers on 6 continents, developing specialized frameworks for emerging economies, and expanding preventative education programs for family business successors. The scope of this vision, global, multi-generational, systemically transformative, stands in stark contrast to the narrow self-interest that motivated Nate's original betrayal. What he sought to destroy through deception, I have rebuilt through transparency. What he attempted to steal through manipulation, I have expanded through collaboration. Landing at Portland International Airport, I'm greeted by Thomas, who has flown ahead to prepare for the Institute's quarterly board meeting. The governor's office called twice while you were in the air, he informs me as we walk to the waiting car. The presidential medal nomination is apparently being fast-tracked. They're suggesting a White House ceremony next month. I nod, mentally, adjusting my schedule to accommodate this unexpected development. And the Nobel Committee? Site visit team arrives next week, Thomas confirms. They'll spend 3 days evaluating implementation data and interviewing certification recipients. The car navigates smoothly through Portland's familiar streets, past the downtown financial district where the Mitchell scandal first erupted, past the courthouse where Nate's case was adjudicated, past the luxury condos where I once played the role of unsuspecting wife while methodically documenting his betrayal. These landmarks, which once carried such emotional charge, now register as merely geographic waypoints in a journey that has expanded far beyond its origin point. The Mitchell name, which Nate nearly destroyed through his selfish choices, now represents a global standard for integrity, a transformation that contains its own perfect justice. Arriving at Mitchell Tower, the Institute's headquarters occupying the same building where Nate once plotted his deceptions, I'm greeted by Eleanor Mitchell in the marble lobby. At 75, she remains elegant and sharp-minded, having channeled her pain over her son's betrayal into passionate advocacy for preventative ethics education. Welcome home. She embraces me warmly. The board is assembled for your debriefing on Davos. Bill insisted on attending despite his doctor's reservations. I smile, touched by my father-in-law's continued commitment despite his advancing age and health challenges. At 85, Bill Mitchell has lived to see his family's name not only rehabilitated, but elevated beyond anything he might have imagined, transformed from regional success story to global governance standard. The board meeting unfolds with typical efficiency: implementation updates, expansion timelines, strategic partnerships, legislative developments. What began as an emergency response to family crisis has evolved into a sophisticated organization with global reach and multinational impact. The United Nations Financial Oversight Committee has officially adopted the Mitchell Standard for all peacekeeping and development funding, reports our policy director. Implementation begins next quarter across their entire operations framework. I nod approvingly, making a note to ensure our specialized adaptation team is properly resourced for this substantial undertaking. The Mitchell methodology, born from personal betrayal in Portland, Oregon, will now help protect humanitarian aid disbursements in conflict zones worldwide. After the meeting adjourns, I find myself alone with Bill Mitchell in the boardroom, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city where everything began. Despite his physical frailty, his mind remains razor-sharp, his business instincts uncanny. I saw Nathan's ethics curriculum is being featured on NPR, he mentions casually, watching for my reaction. Judge Williams mentioned it, I acknowledge. Apparently, his rehabilitation framework is showing promising results with incarcerated white-collar offenders. Bill nods slowly, a mixture of complex emotions crossing his weathered face. Never thought I'd see the day when Nathan would contribute something genuinely worthwhile. People can change, I observe neutrally. Some can, Bill agrees, given proper motivation and structural support. He pauses, studying me with the penetrating gaze that once intimidated Portland's business elite. Does it bother you? Him building a new career around ethics education while you're being nominated for the Presidential Medal of Freedom? I consider the question thoughtfully, appreciating Bill's characteristic directness. 5 years ago, it might have. Now it seems appropriate. Nathan learning from his failures while I build upon my response to them. There's a certain balance in that outcome. Bill smiles, reaching over to pat my hand with affection that has deepened over our years of rebuilding his family's legacy together. Edward would have chosen you from the beginning, you know. My grandfather had an unerring instinct for character. The mention of the Mitchell family patriarch, whose original business plan I discovered and preserved after Nate's betrayal, touches me unexpectedly. I like to think we've honored his vision. Exceeded it, Bill corrects firmly. Edward built a family business. You've created a global standard. What he attempted to steal through manipulation, I have expanded through collaboration. Landing at Portland International Airport, I'm greeted by Thomas, who has flown ahead to prepare for the Institute's quarterly board meeting. The governor's office called twice while you were in the air, he informs me as we walk to the waiting car. The presidential medal nomination is apparently being fast-tracked. They're suggesting a White House ceremony next month. I nod, mentally, adjusting my schedule to accommodate this unexpected development. And the Nobel Committee? Site visit team arrives next week, Thomas confirms. They'll spend 3 days evaluating implementation data and interviewing certification recipients. The car navigates smoothly through Portland's familiar streets, past the downtown financial district where the Mitchell scandal first erupted, past the courthouse where Nate's case was adjudicated, past the luxury condos where I once played the role of unsuspecting wife while methodically documenting his betrayal. These landmarks, which once carried such emotional charge, now register as merely geographic waypoints in a journey that has expanded far beyond its origin point. The Mitchell name, which Nate nearly destroyed through his selfish choices, now represents a global standard for integrity, a transformation that contains its own perfect justice. Arriving at Mitchell Tower, the Institute's headquarters occupying the same building where Nate once plotted his deceptions, I'm greeted by Eleanor Mitchell in the marble lobby. At 75, she remains elegant and sharp-minded, having channeled her pain over her son's betrayal into passionate advocacy for preventative ethics education. Welcome home, she embraces me warmly. The board is assembled for your debriefing on Davos. Bill insisted on attending despite his doctor's reservations. I smile, touched by my father-in-law's continued commitment despite his advancing age and health challenges. At 85, Bill Mitchell has lived to see his family's name not only rehabilitated, but elevated beyond anything he might have imagined. Transformed from regional success story to global governance standard. The board meeting unfolds with typical efficiency: implementation updates, expansion timelines, strategic partnerships, legislative developments. What began as an emergency response to family crisis has evolved into a sophisticated organization with global reach and multinational impact. The United Nations Financial Oversight Committee has officially adopted the Mitchell Standard for all peacekeeping and development funding, reports our policy director. Implementation begins next quarter across their entire operations framework. I nod approvingly, making a note to ensure our specialized adaptation team is properly resourced for this substantial undertaking. The Mitchell methodology, born from personal betrayal in Portland, Oregon, will now help protect humanitarian aid disbursements in conflict zones worldwide. After the meeting adjourns, I find myself alone with Bill Mitchell in the boardroom, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city where everything began. Despite his physical frailty, his mind remains razor-sharp, his business instincts uncanny. I saw Nathan's ethics curriculum is being featured on NPR, he mentions casually, watching for my reaction. Judge Williams mentioned it, I acknowledge. Apparently, his rehabilitation framework is showing promising results with incarcerated white-collar offenders. Bill nods slowly, a mixture of complex emotions crossing his weathered face. Never thought I'd see the day when Nathan would contribute. Something genuinely worthwhile. People can change, I observe neutrally. Some can, Bill agrees, given proper motivation and structural support. He pauses, studying me with the penetrating gaze that once intimidated Portland's business elite. Does it bother you, him building a new career around ethics education while you're being nominated for the Presidential Medal of Freedom? I consider the question thoughtfully, appreciating Bill's characteristic directness. 5 years ago it might have. Now it seems appropriate. Nathan learning from his failures while I build upon my response to them. There's a certain balance in that outcome. Bill smiles, reaching over to pat my hand with affection that has deepened over our years of rebuilding his family's legacy together. Edward would have chosen you from the beginning, you know. My grandfather had an unerring instinct for character. The mention of the Mitchell family patriarch, whose original business plan I discovered and preserved after Nate's betrayal, touches me unexpectedly. I like to think we've honored his vision. Exceeded it, Bill corrects firmly. Edward built a family business. You've created a global standard. As evening settles over Portland, I return to my penthouse overlooking the Willamette River. The space bears little resemblance to the home I once shared with Nate, redesigned completely after his downfall, erasing physical reminders while preserving the lessons learned. The Mitchell Institute's expansion plans spread across my dining table, architectural renderings of international headquarters in London, Singapore, Nairobi, and São Paulo. What began as one woman's effort to protect a single-family business has evolved into a global movement reshaping financial governance on 6 continents. My phone chimes with a notification, a press release announcing the finalists for the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. The Mitchell Standard for Financial Integrity is among the 3 finalists, alongside groundbreaking work in algorithmic market stabilization and sustainable development economics. I smile, recognizing the profound irony. Nathan Mitchell's greatest ambition had been financial domination through deception. My response to his betrayal might earn the world's highest recognition for contributions to economic integrity. Sometimes the universe offers perfect symmetry if we have the patience to wait for it. As night falls over Portland, I stand at my window watching the city lights reflect on the river below. In this peaceful moment, I recognize the unexpected gift hidden within Nate's betrayal, the catalyst that transformed me from the woman he underestimated into the visionary who would protect countless others from similar harm. The path from betrayal to rebuilding, from devastation to creation, from reactive protection to proactive transformation, this journey has shaped not just my life, but the lives of millions who will benefit from systems designed to promote integrity rather than exploit vulnerability. In the end, Nate's most significant contribution to the world wasn't his crimes, but the response they inspired. A comprehensive framework that will guide financial governance long after both our names are forgotten. There's a certain justice in that symmetry, a balance that feels right as I turn from the window toward tomorrow's possibilities. Sometimes the quietest person in the room isn't silent from ignorance, but from observation. Sometimes the most underestimated individual proves to be the most transformative. And sometimes, a betrayal intended to diminish becomes the catalyst for extraordinary growth that benefits not just the one betrayed, but countless others who will never know the personal pain that sparked such powerful protection. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.